Hi, hello. I'm delaying it because I can't believe I finally got here. The entire reason I even started this entire podcast, outside of trying to convince anyone from Sacred Symbols that I'm worthy of a Nier Spoilercast, is making my own. We are finally gathered today to do the Nier Gestalt Spoilercast. It has been 4 months in the making. It is finally here. Countless hours of research, countless hours of wishing I could be playing anything else besides Nier Gestalt as I tried to get the platinum, and just so much time invested to finally get here. And we are finally here, which is why I'm going to cancel this episode. No, I'm not going to. I'm not that cruel to myself. We have gotten at least one other person out of the 14 people who have actually played this in the US. We have Mugetsu over here. Mugetsu, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm really pumped for Nier Replicant to come out. I honestly can't get enough of rereading Nier Gestalt lore and all that stuff. It's like an addiction of juicy writing, and I'm just really excited to be here talking to someone about it. I really feel like I don't meet enough people who knew this game existed before Automata came out, and it's just I can't really express how excited I am. It's so awesome.
Everything you said is me. I've only played this game for the first time 2 years ago, after I had played Automata and went so deep into the rabbit hole that I said I needed more.
That's exactly what happened to me. I discovered it afterwards, and I heard about how it was its own story, and I was like, "What is this?" And I read that there was one that was only released in Japan, there was one in America, and there's this whole Papa Near, Brother Near whole debate that's been going on for years. And I'm just like, "Where has this been all this time?" And don't even get me started on the music rabbit hole too. All
Ooh.
of the albums, they're so crazy. They have all the additional songs, they have the addendums, the piano collections. There is so much stuff, and it's crazy. You don't see half of the AAA gaming franchises out there have as much content on the side as Nier does.
Ooh, we are already 2 minutes in, and I already knew you were the right choice. Oh, all right. We're doing good stuff here.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now let's just front load this because I already know that we're about to go so deep down this rabbit hole that we should probably put all the baggage for Nier up in the front. So, yes, there are two different versions of Nier. There is one that is exclusive to Japan only for PS3 players back in 2010 called Nier Replicant. Moving forward, in all likelihood, if we say the word replicant, we are talking about the original. We are not talking about Replicant version 1.2. However, I will say this, because at the time of recording, we still have not played Replicant version 1.2. Just assume that everything we're saying is potentially going to spoil 1.2. So if you want to listen to this and you can convince yourself you are just listening to a spoiler cast about Gestalt and Replicant, and you can lie to yourself going into version 1.2 and telling yourself, no, I've played those original games. Now I'm going to play this as either a new experience or again. If you can tell yourself that, feel free to hang around. There's still something for that. Or even if you just finish 1.2, this is still going to be valuable. Mugetsu, do you agree with that statement? Anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say there is a lot of plot similarities with Gestalt and Replicant, like a lot of them. So definitely, a lot of people should go into this considering that it can spoil Replicant just without some minor details, like obviously
Wait, hold on.
Father Nier.
Replicant V12, right?
Right, V12. Yeah, absolutely. Other than the Papa Near, Brother Near debate and all that, they should definitely go into this expecting that it can spoil elements of that game. If they want to be completely blind to it, like say it's someone like you and me, where they discovered this game existed after Automata and they don't want to get ruined for it, this is probably not where they should go before the game.
I agree with everything that he said. So not only that, so of course, let's go ahead and front load with the fact that Nier is not only just a game for itself, it is a spin-off off of an old series called Drakengard, and the only reason Nier came up is because it was the joke ending from Drakengard 1 in 2003, and it was just supposed to be a reference to however Neon Genesis Evangelion ends. I have never watched it. Honestly, it'll probably be one of the last animes I watch before I throw away the whole damn genre, only because I've heard it has similarities with Metal Gear Solid and Nier. Besides that, probably never touching the damn thing again. Of course, Nier is a giant spanning series, which is ridiculous when you only consider there are 4 games that are important, but it's really only 2 games that you need to worry about. We have Nier Replicant, which is the nichest one that you can find. It was a PS3 game that released in 2010. Imagine if you lived in Japan. There are 3 different ways that you could have played Nier in 2010. You could have played Nier Gestalt, which has the main character be Papa Nier, just the ugliest man you can think to be a leading man for a Japanese game. You can either play as him on your 360. If you're in Japan and you have a PS3, you could play Nier Gestalt as well through there. Once again, Papa Nier. Or, or since you have the privilege of living in Japan, you could have played Nier Replicant, which had the main character be the Japanese pop star that you think each one of these JRPGs should probably have. Now, I don't agree with the term of JRPG for this game. It's just a RPG that takes place in Japan. We'll get to anything that you disagree with that my assessment.
No, I would just honestly consider it a Japanese action RPG game. That's what I would consider it. I don't think JRPG is an appropriate term for the style of game.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I keep forgetting that we can modify things. In my head, I keep thinking JRPG is the richest term to put on it. But you are right. Yes, it's a Japanese action role playing game. And usually those can be different because even Devil May Cry fits in that category. So,
And
with
one other
that,
thing, I don't
go.
I don't know if I want to say this because we don't actually have confirmation, but in regards to Papa Nier being absolutely hideous, there has been a lot of traction around the pre-order avatars. Now we don't know if Papa Nier will be in Replicant V 1.2, but judging from the avatar that is posted on there, it does look like they may have made him not ugly, but it's a small image. We can't really tell, but I saw it and I was like, ooh, okay, keep talking. So we'll
Now,
see.
I would very much like to see Papa Nier come back in some way. I don't care how you know what, we're gonna
Best of both worlds. Best of both worlds. That's what I would like.
you're not wrong. For me, the thing is that I want to not jump into it yet. I want to get the preamble out so then
Right,
once we
right, right,
start hitting
right.
the story, we start hitting
We're
hard.
getting too
I was
excited.
oh, very much so. I was going to talk about the DLC for Original Nier. I think that's so minor enough that I don't mind talking about that right now. So, Nier Gestalt. Oh, I didn't even finish explaining the rest of the games. If you were in Japan, that was pretty much it. You had 3 options of playing it: either Nier Replicant on PS3 with the Japanese pop idol. Uh, wait, okay, I can't be sarcastic because I'm trying to make this informative as well. It is a teenager. The main character is a teenager, while in Nier Gestalt you play as like a 40 something dad instead. So you on PS3 in Japan had the option of playing either game. If you had a 360 in Japan, you could only play Nier Gestalt, which had the dad. From there, as soon as you got out of Japan in 2010, your only option was to play Nier Gestalt. And this is reflected in the title because only once you get outside of Japan is it only known as Nier. So I am titling this Nier Gestalt Spoilercast for the fact that it helps differentiate what the games are. And so I don't have people going, wait a minute, Nier Replicant, why are you doing a spoiler cast for a game that's not even out? Look, we're not dealing with that. It is just Nier Gestalt, but know that everything that I'm talking about reflects for Nier Replicant as well. But there's only one thing in the document where the difference is apparent, and I will be sure to mention it. So, that being said, the DLC was the only way outside of Japan, if you did not have a PS3, to play as the other Nier. So, if you had a Japanese Xbox, or if you were anywhere else outside of Japan, The only way that you can play as the teenage Nier was through DLC. What was this DLC? What is the difference with that DLC? It is pretty much useless. It is just combat. It is very pointless dialogue placed in on the screen of hints towards the lore, but it only works if you know the lore, so there's no point to it. And you play as a younger Nier after his wife has died, and you're just fighting enemies. So literally the only way you could ever play as the opposite character is by buying the DLC. So that's that. Now that I got at least the DLC out of the way, because that's gonna be pointless. We already got all the weird shit about Nier out of the way, of how it even came off from Drakengard. Let's see. I can't think of any preamble from here. Mugetsu, anything else that you can think of when it comes to preamble before we start getting into the actual lore?
No, I can't think of anything else. I actually can't. I think we did cover everything. Most of all, the DLC being pointless. That was definitely important to just knock out the way.
Did you ever play the DLC?
I did not. Actually, I only discovered that the DLC was a thing when I read the information that you provided me before we did this. Yeah, I didn't even know there was a whole thing about that.
Oh, by the way, just because I want a tangent off of here, eventually I'll play Drakengard 3. I sold a whole bunch of games that I wanted out of my collection. I bought a PSN card. I jumped into Drakengard 3 and I bought all the DLC. And I was like, well, first off, the PS3 store is horrible, but it shouldn't be
Hmm.
killed because of that. But buying all the DLC through there was a pain. And when I realized I still had money left over, I saw that Nier had DLC, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do this spoiler cast, I might as well be full on encompassing of everything. And I realized that the DLC pretty pointless, but at least I put in the money to say, hey, I can tell you it's pointless, besides
Right.
the fact that you can change to a different character. That's it. Oh, and there's
And you
costumes.
said you haven't played Drakengard 3, or is it that you haven't
I
finished it?
have not played Drakengard 3.
Okay, I
Neither
haven't
have I
played it
played 1.
either, but I have watched a playthrough of it because I didn't have access to a PS3. So I know the story and everything, but I have not held the controller and witnessed the clunkiness of that gameplay, because I remember that was a very big discussion about it, was that it had frame rate issues and it was very clunky, most of all in the platforming. I definitely heard a lot of stuff about
I want you to know that if there's any other thing in my life that is going to try to get me to kill myself, it's going to be the fact that I want to platinum that game.
that. I understand that completely, actually. I understand that.
Okay, with that being said, I think we are actually finally ready to tackle this shit. We got 31 pages. Let's go ahead and take it from the top. I have a table of contents of everything that is involved with Nier alone. Not Nier Automata, not Drakengard, just stuff that is important for Nier, Gestalt, and Replicant. And of course, going forward, if you have already beaten version 1.2, this is a good time for you to listen to this, because there is going to be so much lore shit that is not actually in the game that explains way more of the world, of Project Gestalt, of the twins, of the world that takes them from here into Automata. All that is going to be here, so there is still a reason to listen to this for that. So, table of contents. We've got the important information from Drakengard 1. We have an Emil short story, The Stone Flower. We have Weiss's short story, And Then There Were None. We have the Pro-Prologue to the actual game for Nier. We have Nier's short story, Red and Black. We have the first half of the game that I've dubbed the prologue because it's easier to keep track of that way, because you can't go back and replay that anyways. From there, we have the Two Brothers short story, The Demonic Mountain. We have Fira's short story, A Little Princess. After the 5-year jump, we have a run of Nier. We have a short story that is for Emil and Kaine called The Narrow Gate. We have the Postman's short story, The Mermaid Princess. Now, we have here Nier DLC, The World of the Recycled Vessel. Now, here's the thing, the title is very, very on the nose. Recycled Vessel, yes, because it's recycled content, and I already talked about that, so that is getting pulled. From here, we also have the B run for Nier. We have another Kaine short story, which is Sabbath, which it's going to be it's going to be juicy. We have Emil after B ending short story, Around the World in 80 Days. We have the dreaded C run for Nier. We have D ending. And then we have the short story that is dubbed Ending E, The Lost World. Now, with all that being said, Mugetsu, are you excited?
I am I am shaking with joy right now. I can't wait to just start talking about it. I can't wait to get into this. It's so more rich. I have told this to so many people when I talk about Nier and Drakengard lore. It is the best. It is the most detailed I've ever seen. It is the most genius. I thank Yoko Taro for making this masterpiece. I can't wait to talk about it.
It's so weird how positive I am about so much of Nier, but if you were to ever tell me to go play it again, I'd tell you to fuck off. So, a couple of intro things that you see, here's the thing. We're already almost 20 minutes in, at least into the recording. I know once I edit it, it's probably going to be shorter, but we're almost 20 minutes in and there's still so much explanation. So, just a little bit. I'm sorry that I need to blue ball just a little bit, but there's a couple of things that I feel are necessary to mention.
Okay.
First off, at the masthead that I put of this document, Yoko Taro, the director and the brainchild that is behind the entire Drakengard series, I took a quote from him because I feel it is emblematic of everything that he does. A quote from an interview that he had done with a website. I don't remember it anymore. There was a lot of research doing, but if you were to take this exact quote and search it up, I'm pretty sure you can find it. His exact words: "I'll do anything it takes for players to enjoy it." Now, I could have added context, I could have explained what it is. However, just the fact that this is his entire ideology about the entire series and canon of games that he develops, everything that he does is done with the idea that hopefully you enjoy it. Now, whether if it is just completely depressing or anything like that, as long as it is engaging and you enjoy it. That is the pure driving force that he has with every choice he makes. That's the first thing. The second thing, Near Replicant and Near Gestalt. These games are both canon. Both of them are supposed to be different timelines or different branches off of the same events within the world. So Gestalt actually takes place, I want to say, about 100 years after Replicant. But these are supposed to be the exact same game with the same characters and different timelines. The idea being that, well, at least from the way that I had read, is that it's not supposed to be parallel universes. It's supposed to be different ways events could have played out. Distinct patterns in an ever repeating world is the exact phrase that was used. That's the second one. The third one is that everything that we're going to be talking about is basically pointless. The reason I say that is because, per the words of the man himself, at least paraphrasing, Nier is designed specifically for emotional impact, but there is a whole bunch of lore shit if you want. These are the three tenets that Yoko Taro has. And I want that to be the thought at the back of your head with all of this. Mugetsu, anything that you have to say about any of that?
No, everything you said was actually accurate. I even agree with the whole quote thing. I would say that I find it interesting that he does say that, and yet he will give these absolutely tear jerking moments that I won't mention because that's for later. But like, I know Drakengard 3's whole final boss was the most torture any player could ever endure in a video game, so I don't know how that part is enjoyable. I
No,
didn't even have to
twice.
actually play it in order to see how crazy that boss was and how he just
Oof, okay, you know what? That is something that is going into the document because there Oh, okay. All right. You know what? Let's get started so I can discuss that.
Okay.
We are now going into Drakengard 1 required info. Drakengard 1 is a 2003. Hold on, I'm going to look that up, and if I am wrong, I will say that line again. And oh, wow. Wow, that's horrible. Okay. Drakengard 1, a game that came out in 2003. Jesus Christ, September 11th. It came out September 11th, 2003. Wow, okay, this is a really depressing game and it came out 2 years after 9/11. Yeah, okay. Good date, Yoko Taro. Drakengard 1 is a video game that came out. It was developed by Kavia and it was produced by Square Enix. Now, Drakengard 1 has a history of being just a game that is ridiculously dark and it wants to go there. If you know what that statement means and you're kind of questioning, well, go where? If you know, go there. That's what that means. Now, here is the details that are important to Drakengard 1. There is a main character called Kame, right? Or Kime. Kime.
Time.
There's a main character named Kime. He is part of this army. They are fighting a cult of red-eyed minions controlled by the Watchers. Who are the Watchers? So, when it comes to the Watchers, they are the creator of the dragons and the entire world that is around them, even any race that isn't humans, except humans. So, they created everything except the humans. And the reason why they have a vendetta against the humans is because of this. And it's also because they see humanity as a failure due to their strong ego and uncontrollable nature. So, what they do is that they use the red eye disease, and of course, the red eyed minions are the ones who are under the red eye disease to destroy mankind to be able to kind of rid the world of them. But Kime gets hurt in a battle and he meets a dragon named Angelus, and they make a life pack that fuses their souls together. Now, with them getting fused together, it means that both of them were on the verge of death, but combining their life force means that they will both live together. But now, if anything were to happen to one, it happens to the other. The main reason that this could even happen is because the dragons do not have souls. So Kime can give up his life into Angelus and they share it together. So while he himself can die, his soul is within Angelus. So if you were to kill Angelus, you kill his soul, Kime dies too. If Kime dies, then that means his soul dies, Angelus dies. So this is how the connection works. However, you play the game, apparently it's not even that strong of a bond because apparently Angelus just returns it to him at some point. So who cares? You know, it's a bond, it's a pact, but apparently you can just break it like nothing. So we're not going into there. However, what we will say is that the reason that this pact even exists is the entire reason that the Gestalt and Replicant system were created. I'm throwing a whole lot out here. It's not going to get explained yet. No worries, we'll get there. These are just things to keep in mind. After this, all of Drakengard 1 just happens. Just there a whole bunch of stuff in the game happens. Most of the stuff really isn't too important to Nier, except ending E of Drakengard 1. There is a giant created out of Maso. Now, what is Maso? We'll get there. A giant teleports Kime and Angelus for a boss fight over Tokyo. Now, this boss fight is actually what Mugetsu was talking about in Drakengard 3. In Drakengard 3, the main character of that game, you find out, it turns into the boss that you fight in Drakengard 1. Now, when it comes to that boss fight was so horrifically designed that Yoko Taro has a phrase attached to him about going into a locker whenever he's getting hard pushback. And apparently, in forums for Drakengard 1 in Japan, whenever that game came out, a whole bunch of people were just yelling about Yoko Taro deciding to put this in his game. That the rumor goes that Yoko Taro locked himself into a locker because he wanted to stop reading the comments. So yeah, that's everything that you said about the final boss in Drakengard 3. I knew I wanted to talk about it because I remember that he probably put himself into another locker intentionally for Drakengard 3. Now, what was that boss fight? Just because if you're ever curious, it is a rhythm game and a complete shift from the rest of the game, which is a knockoff of Dynasty Warriors. And if you get hit once, you die. And there are legitimate videos put on YouTube just designed to tell you, okay, press now, press now, press now, press now, press now, press now. So it's not exactly a battle that is fought fun. Now, after you hurt your hand trying to defeat the giant, of course, the giant is someone that is controlled by the Watchers. Now, after you defeat the giant, Kaim, Angelus, and the giant are hit by missiles from the Japanese army, and they die over Tokyo in 2003. Now, since these people were not from Tokyo, they were from another dimension. They are killed but they disintegrate into a demonic element called Maso. Now, what ends up happening is that this muscle spreads into Japan. And what ends up happening is that the people who come into contact with it, either breathe it or touch it, any sort of contact, what ends up happening is that they are brought upon the Watchers from Drakengard, and they are told that we need you to destroy the world according to how we see it, or if you reject, you will die. Now, what would end up happening is that these people would either turn into salt, they would chlorinate, and then they would die. However, if they accept, they would become Legion. They would become the Red Eyes that Kaim was fighting originally in his timeline. Now, from there, the other thing that Yoko Taro had said after getting so much pushback from Drakengard 1 and hearing how most people had actually enjoyed Nier, he had been quoted saying, I am happy you like Nier. Please don't expect too much from me now, but go about it with the mentality of trying a bit of something and finding it unexpectedly good. Mugetsu, that is the stuff for Drakengard 1. How do you feel about this? Any additions? Go for it.
The only thing I can really say is it's crazy how a joke ending like that, where the protagonist is killed and everything in a whole another dimension in our world, it's crazy how that kind of thing can just spiral downward into a whole couple other games. It's crazy because probably if I played Drakengard 1 when it first came out and I saw that ending, I would have just laughed my ass off. But now that I've just seen everything at once, it's just crazy to me that that kind of thing happened and it made this whole other game. It's awesome.
I actually have Drakengard 1 on order. That is going to be a game I play. I'm going to probably try and kill myself that one too once I start getting into that boss fight.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Oh my god. I'm going to have to do it twice because it pops up in Drakengard 3 as well. So, ooh, I'm not looking forward to this, but I am. Now,
It's gonna hurt so good. That's
it's
just
going to hurt so good. Now, if I had played Drakengard 1 when it was contemporary, I know that had I actually gotten to ending E, because here's the thing, apparently Drakengard and even Nier really do not like you to get to the final ending. They do not make it as easy as Automata does, which is literally just hit continue, go next, chapter select, which was probably the right choice. If I were to actually play Drakengard 1 at the time, not know about any of the rest of the series, if I got to ending E and I got tossed into a completely different dimension that is nowadays, I would be thinking, what the fuck is going on? I was just in this medieval timeline and now I'm getting tossed into Tokyo, Japan. I assume modern day. What the hell is going on? I would fight it. I would try to get the ending to try and get at least some answers, but I probably wouldn't get one. And I think, wow, I have no idea what that was. I'm assuming that was just supposed to be an Easter egg for the hardest of hardcore and then move on with my day.
Yeah, because I remember when I originally looked up everything about Drakengard 1, because I'll admit I didn't play this game either. From what I remember, it was just a sudden transportation. There was nothing that either Kaim nor the Queen Beast did that would have gotten them transported. It's just they randomly went into a white light and then they were just transported to Tokyo. They just fell from the sky, and it was the most random thing ever. I don't remember them doing anything that caused it, and that's what's even more crazy about it. And there's no way playing this back in the day that you could have ever imagined it would make a whole nother game, because it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
Pretty much the key of Nier, isn't it? It doesn't make sense. It's all about the emotion that hits you, and it's not really supposed to be about the details. I mean, if you look at Automata, like whenever they're climbing the tower at the end, why are they climbing that tower? You know, it's the tower that popped up and they have the keys for it. Like, imagine if you found keys on the side of the street. Are you going to try and figure out what house it is? Like, no. So,
You do have a good point, because there's nothing that really would lead them to believe there's anything in that tower for them. They just find it out once they go in there. That's it. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
yeah, pretty much. They find the keys and they're like, "Well, I'm going to figure out what house this is connected to." I mean, that's what it is. Okay, now Drakengard 1. The important information here is the Maso is spread over Tokyo. The dragon gets shot down by the Japanese government, and the Maso is infecting people to either join the Watchers or die. Now, oh, and of course, the fourth thing being that the dragon not having a soul, but being allowed to be provided a soul, is how the entire gestalt and replicant process can even exist. These are the important beats, but of course, we're going to embellish a little bit. Now, here's what I want to mention. You've gotten this far, and we still haven't talked about the game. That's how deep the shit goes, okay? So, here is where we're going to start getting into a timeline. This is Nier Lore. Now, even though it says that in Tokyo, Japan is where they landed in Drakengard 1, from the lore that I found, apparently Shinjuku is where they popped up over. Now, I'm not a I'm not an expert in Japanese geography. We'll get to. I'm wondering, do you know if Shinjuku is a part of Tokyo? Is it a
Yeah, it's a district in Tokyo. There's a lot of different
ah,
districts, and Shinjuku is probably where a lot of the shopping districts are. Like, that's going to be where the big
ooh,
hub is of the place. Kind of like downtown Tokyo is what you could call Shinjuku.
ooh.
That's why once they fall in from the sky, there's a lot of skyscrapers and buildings. I remember Angelus even lands on the top of a skyscraper, because
Yes.
that's where they are. They're in where a lot of the buildings
Yes, correct. Whenever the Japanese government shoots down Kaim and Angelus, Angelus's body actually lands impaled on one of the buildings. So that's what he was talking about. So we're going to go and start getting into the Nier lore. Shinjuku is where the Queen and Kaim and Angelus decided to fight. What ends up happening is that they die, and the Maso spreads into the downtown of Tokyo, which pretty catastrophic when you realize that if you come into contact with the Maso, it will turn you into Legion, or you will just turn into Salt, which means that you spread out and will then infect other people. Congratulations. There's no
Either way,
winning.
you don't win. Either way, you do not win.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, the Legion, they're mind controlled, so I wouldn't be shocked if you were still conscious as you were destroying loved ones and everyone near you. Yay! Happy stories from Yoko Taro. Yay! All right. Shinjuku itself is completely walled off, and they call it the Wall of Jericho. The US hears about Japan, currently allies. So what they do is that they start carpet bombing Shinjuku to help out. But eventually what they do is that they try to convince Japan, "Hey, look, let us drop nukes again." Which first off is horrifying that not only did the US recommend this, Japan even thought the situation was so bad that they went nuke it. So the wall of Jericho is standing, and the US comes in and drops off a nuke into Shinjuku. Now, this was in 2003. the nuclear fallout takes a while to kill the people who are locked off in Shinjuku, which, by the way, they didn't try to get people out of Shinjuku. If you were stuck in when the Wall of Jericho went up, too bad. You were completely just
Oh, wait,
written
wait,
off.
wait. I gotta
Oh,
tell you something.
ooh, am I wrong?
Actually,
Yes.
what happened? I should have said this a couple seconds earlier, but actually, the Wall of Jericho was up, and then I believe it was February 2008 where the Wall of Jericho was destroyed by Legion and Red Eye, and then that's what leads them to basically consider carpet bombing and nuking. That's what happens because the Wall of Jericho was good at keeping everyone out, and then once it was torn down by Legion, they started spreading more and more, and that's when everyone panics because the whole
Oh,
white chlorination syndrome basically reappears, and it goes out from Tokyo itself, like the massive city, into the Kanto area, and it's going everywhere. It basically becomes airborne at that point. So that's why they consider doing the carpet bombing and
you were the right choice. So you were the right
the
choice.
nuke.
All right. What I have from here is that after that, pretty much November 2009 is when they declare the infected dead. They declare that the red eye is gone. Well, no, hold on. I don't want to use the term red eye. Legion. Legion is gone. The reason that I make that distinction is because red eye are specifically different type of legion, but we'll get there. November 2009, pretty much they go all clear, we're good, the world is fine. February 2010, people in China start showing signs of the infection. They start going berserk and they start realizing, oh no, Legion is back. What ended up happening is that from the carpet bombing and the nukes that are dropped, the explosion hit and the people then dispersed into the air. The Maso and the salt got taken by trade winds and infected the people in China, which is horrifying to think about. We are recording in 2021, and to think of a global pandemic taken down by bombs to try and end it for only the wind to take it is horrifying to think about. We'll get to anything you want to add?
I I just I can't believe that detail. The only thing I can think of is maybe to just have let Tokyo tear itself apart and just let that happen because the carpet bombing made it worse. I mean, maybe you could have burned the whole city to the ground, but I don't know if that's gonna work. That is the detail that I admire from Yoko Taro is that he is so detailed to even where inaccurately it makes sense that winds from a shockwave of the entire nuke makes it go flying across the ocean. It goes into China. It goes all over East Asia, everywhere. That is such crazy detail that you won't find anywhere else. That is so good.
It's when I remember hearing about this shit for the first time, I was like, how did you even think of this horrifying scenario?
Let's hope
Like,
Yoko Taro never comes up with a disease like this and uses it on all of us because he will succeed. He'll succeed.
we just no. The problem is that we never need Kojima to think of a disease, okay? Because this man called the internet from Metal Gear Solid 2, and then he called our Death Stranding world in Death Stranding. So Yoko Taro, he thankfully doesn't have power besides entertaining us. Kojima, on the other hand, I swear that man can look into the future and go, I'm gonna make a video game off of that. Now, what people are starting to dub this problem, this infection, they're calling it the white chlorination syndrome. So, of course, now I don't think people themselves know what is going on with Legion. So, if you get hit with the white chlorination syndrome, people only know about you turning into salt or going insane. It is only through the extended lore from interviews with Yoko Taro does he mention the watchers and the gods being the ones that decide what ends up happening with you with white chlorination syndrome. So
Basically, you're only limited to know about it if you become the victim of it. That's how it works. Otherwise, you'll find no mention of that.
correct, yes. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff in here that is either actual like written down lore or it's going to be stuff that Yoko Taro probably pulled out of his ass in an interview. So it's all mixed in, it's all baked in. Oh, holy shit. We're only 41 minutes in. I've already ran out of water. This is going to be a long one. So, March 2014. The Japanese government is basically being held responsible for all of this. And they're getting the Japanese government to fund the resistance for the white chlorination syndrome, for fighting Legion, for fighting Red Eye, all of this. And the Japanese government basically comes to an agreement like, hey, we're going to work on something called Project Gestalt to try to make sure that humanity can have its future secured. So in March 2014, Project Gestalt is established. Now, March 2014, Project Gestalt. This is the part of the document that I talk about Maso. So Maso, of course, is the particle that Kime and Angelus and the Giant turn into. Now, this causes the white chlorination syndrome, of course, if you come into contact with this. But what ends up happening from Project Gestalt is that they realize that Maso, because it is from another world, another dimension, not of Earth, they realize that they can use it for magic. So all the sealed verse attacks that you see in Nier Gestalt, Nier Replicant, V1.2, I try to put a space there, Replicant, and Replicant V1.2, all of that comes from the Giant, Kime, and Angelus dying over Tokyo. Now, keep in mind, this is in 2014, while the game takes place in like 3400. So it is a 1400 old attack, which is interesting to think about because that is nowhere near in the game. December 2016, Hamlin Organization. The Hamlin organization is created from Project Gestalt with the purpose of a defense force against Legion and the Red Eye. But the thing is that they use child soldiers because children themselves are more immune to white chlorination syndrome than adults. But there is a certain medicine that makes them a bit more immune. Now, here's the thing that's not exactly true, but we will get there. I also looked up the medicine. I'm going to butcher this phrasing because I'm not very good at medicine or names or biology. Lucy, Lu, Lucy. Oh my god, I screwed this up. Mugetsu, do you know how to read that?
I think it's luciferase.
Luciferase. Yeah, that sounds right. Luciferase is a genetic term for the class of oxidized enzymes that produce bioluminescence and is usually distinguished from a photoprotein. I don't know whatever that means. All I know is that it sounds like it is just an enzyme that makes you glow. That is pretty much it. Now, the next part is Red Eye. Who is Red Eye? Of course, when you are presented with the option to either join Legion or die, there are some people who, if they choose to join Legion, they will still have enough intelligence within themselves that whenever they transfer over, they're basically made captains of the Legion army, and they can actually command the Legion to do whatever they want. And apparently, the way that the Legion attack is that they eat people. From here, there is a 14-year war against the Legion until headway is made with humans. Now, that is pretty much all the lore leading up to the first short story that involves Emil. So, who is Emil? I can't explain that. At this point, I'm sorry, you should probably play at least a little bit of the game. Now, what is the story for the Stone Flower? I'm going to sum it up, and I think at this point, what I'm going to do is that I will probably post the document somewhere if you want to get more details. So, what is the Stone Flower? The Hamlin organization, of course, created to help out with Project Gestalt. What they are doing is that they have children that they're experimenting on to fight against Legion. What ends up happening is that there are twin siblings that are there. They have Halua and they have Emil. They are treated very nicely by one of the scientists there. She treats them as if they were her own kids. However, while Emil is all for it, the story is told from Halua's point of view, and you realize that she really doesn't trust the scientist. She is very protective over Emil and is trying her best to try to keep an eye with Emil, try to make sure that he's happy, but also completely worried about the scientist's actual reason for being there. Now, what ends up happening is that they get taken in for a checkup, and what ends up happening is that she realizes that it's not a real checkup. They're actually going to experiment on her. She gets changed into a gigantic beast that is supposed to be very, very useful against the Legion. But not only does she realize that, what ends up happening is that Emil gets some of the same treatment as well. What ends up happening is that she hears that the scientists, as they're experimenting on her, they say, now, I will quote this one because I did want to read it. Halua, she could smell the antiseptic. There was a cold sensation, and then her arm pricked with pain. She had been injected with something. When her surprised cries ceased, she heard a snippet of the adult's conversation. This must be the sixth now. We can't scrap any more specimens. No, we'll succeed with this one. If she had even a little self awareness left, that alone should. What were they talking about? What do they mean by the sixth? What did if something is left mean? Even if we fail, she has a brother, right? A direct relative should have the right aptitude. She could feel the blood turn to ice in her veins. They were going to kill her. Emil, too. Help, Sensei. Save Emil. The scream failed to materialize, and all that came was darkness. Of course, Sensei being the scientist that they trust. What ends up happening from here is that she wakes up and she can hear everything around her. She looks around and then she realizes that she is turned into a monster. She is no longer a human being. She crashes out and she tries to find Emil. She's devastated. She has no idea what she's going on. All she knows is that she needs to get to Emil. Now, Sensei, being the scientist that treated them very nicely, she shows up to a Halua and tells her, "Hey, look! Oh my God! Please stop destroying things. Please stop it." Halua, in a fit of emotions, kills her. Just she hits her. She flashes over to the wall, and it's just blood that's left. But what ends up happening is that she finally sees Emil. Emil looks at her and tells her, "Hey, what's going on? Like, I need you to calm down." What ends up happening is that they experimented on Emil. He looks exactly the same, except now whenever he looks at things, he can petrify with his eyes. And Halua, because it is her brother, she can't do anything. She's not going to do anything. And she lets Emil petrify her. After that, they lock up Halua and they take Emil away. That is the short story for The Stone Flower. It takes place in 2026. Of course, keep in mind, Nier doesn't really open up until 3300, so that means Emil is over 1,000 years old. Mugetsu, I toss it over to you. Stoneflower, how'd you feel about this?
Feel dead inside, honestly. This is where definitely a lot of the tragedy of Nier begins, and it's it's not comparable to anything. I know I keep on saying over and over in this little spoiler cast that a lot of the writing in Nier and Drakengard can't really compare to other things, but it's true. I cannot think of more twisted things to happen to characters than like this, for example. The Stoneflower is a perfect example of just how much Yoko Taro loves to just hurt his characters and hurt us. Because every time I hear that story, it hurts for sure.
Now, Stoneflower, the first time that I had read it was actually for getting ready for this spoiler cast. Reading it, I actually mainlined all of the short stories back to back to back, which, once again, I'm going to make the same joke. I wanted to kill myself. All of this shit
Mhm.
is so depressing, and I love it, and I would happily read it again. Except one story, which is probably the Two Brothers one, because, well, that one or the Fear one, but we'll get there. Now, how do I feel about this story? Yeah, holy shit. You're told that the Hamlin organization is messing with children, and you're thinking, wow, okay, that's kind of messed up. To then have a short story of you almost in first person with her, worried about Emil, who, let's understand this. If you are listening to all of these stories or reading them, at this point, you probably already know Emil. If you didn't like Emil, I don't know what is wrong with you. So, not only do you already have built in emotions for Emil, to then be put into almost a first person's perspective with Halua, who is his twin sister, basically as close as you can get for a family relationship, this is just double amount of why we should care about Emil. So whenever Halua looks and realizes, oh shit, I am back up. Oh my god, where is Emil? You were right there with her. You were like, I need to save Emil at all costs because Emil is best boy, and so does Halua. Like Halua knows that as well. So the stone flower, phenomenal. It lets you know that all of the stuff that's going on with the Hamlet organization is off, and they are going to be showing up again. By the way, fun fact, Hamlin organization isn't even mentioned at all in the game. And that seems like the tying thread to a whole bunch of this. We get to anything else before we move on?
No, nothing else.
All right. We are back into the timeline now. As I said, the Hamlin organization has been fighting the Legion for a couple of years now, a 14-year war. In 2030, Red Eye is defeated. Now, here's the thing there are multiple Red Eyes that exist. However, there was one original Red Eye that existed whenever the White Chlorination Syndrome was starting to begin. So, a big defeat happens whenever they take down Red Eye. So, a huge defeat, and what ends up happening is that the original Red Eye ends up being a instrumental person when it comes to leading Legion. Now, after this, they start cleaning up a little bit, and the Legion starts going down. But what ends up happening is that even a year later, the White Chlorination Syndrome is still overtaking the world. It's not something that you can really stop. So the genie is out of the bottle. There is just very little hope that humanity will survive. In 2032, the Hamlin organization reveals the replicant and gestalt process. What they do is that they take the soul out of your body and they leave your body behind. And what they hope to do is that they want to stopgap it so humanity can still survive and then later on still be able to come back if they can figure out a way to get rid of the white chlorination syndrome. Now, Mugetsu, is there a big Sony exclusive in 2017 that you played?
2017. Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes.
I played it, did not beat it though, but I know a good chunk of the plot. Something I've been meaning to revisit.
Do you know the twist?
No, I don't know the twist actually.
Oh, okay.
But you can
Do
spoil it. I don't care.
are you sure?
Yeah, I don't care. The
Okay.
only spoilers I hate are deaths. So if it's just like a twist about what's behind everything, I'm good with that. You can say it.
Okay. All right. Now here's the thing. Everything that I said, splitting soul from body in hopes of a stopgap for humanity. It's funny to see that Horizon Zero Dawn is that too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn is actually what they did is that they allowed humanity to die and then they rebooted them. So at some point humanity did die. The reason
Well,
I
I'm not
mentioned
gonna
that
lie. You just increased my interest in replaying that game to about 70%. Like that has made a move so far up the backlog now. You just piqued my
I
interest.
I can tell
So
you right now, Horizon Zero Dawn, the only thing I strongly care about is the Project Zero Dawn part of that game.
and
And
of course
let's
it's called
see.
Project Zero Dawn.
Yeah,
Project, of
exactly.
course.
Another fucking project. It seems that if you put project in the name, I'm in.
And there's a lot of sadness in there. Yeah, a lot of tragedy for humanity. Yep.
Oh, anytime that humanity's being tortured, you can just count me in.
Yeah, you can count them in, and you can call it Project. Project will make it sound cool as humanity is being destroyed.
Project
That's.
Depression.
Yep. There you go.
So now all of that is going to be quarantined because, I don't want to spoil it needlessly for people.
Right.
I just found it funny that there was a connection. So, Replicant and Gestalt is revealed, splitting soul just as a stopgap. Now, people are completely repulsed by the idea, and they tell them, hell no, we are not doing this. This is against humanity. You can't do this. However, after enough time, within the very same year, not even a different year, within the same year, White Chlorination Syndrome is hitting so many people and leaving so much death in its wake that people, the richest of people in society, go, okay, we will pay you. Please just get us in. Now, what ends up happening is that they split the body from the soul. The bodies are left behind, and those are called the replicants. The souls are called the gestalts. Androids are created to oversee the replicants, and while the gestalts are created and they are shades, we're just going to get that out of the way because the game will play with it later. The gestalts are shades. The replicants are the actual human looking people, but they are completely soulless, as Angelus was as a dragon. You see, that's how it ties in. Angelus, the soulless dragon, since they took her body off the building and studied her, that's where Maso came from, and that is also where the Gestalt and replicant process came from. They realized that Angelus was soulless, but they were able to figure out how to reverse engineer that so then humans could be made soulless, and those are the replicants. Every single person that you meet in Nier Gestalt or Nier Replicant is not human besides the Pro-Prologue. After that point, everyone is a replicant or, in Devil and Populous' case, an android. Ugetsu, how about that?
Yeah, it's just crazy how throughout all of Nier, I remember I expected that humanity was going to be alive because of course this is after Automata, and they were, but not in the case that you would think. The fact that you have souls and you have bodies that don't have souls, even though they could still have emotion, which is kind of interesting. You
Mm,
don't have in a lot of fiction, you'll see things where if you have no soul, you have no emotion, or if you don't have a heart, you don't have emotion. So it's interesting where the soul becomes, of course, shades, which can, be berserk or whatnot. They can basically be mindless, even though they're a soul. I just love how Yoko Taro kind of plays with those expectations when making the Gestalts and the replicants. I love that kind
my god, I still love how much they shit talk the replicants throughout the entire game. But we will get there.
And then of course
Now,
the androids out of nowhere too. Like you
oh my
said,
god.
Devil and Popola, just androids too. Yeah, not only do you have Gestalts and replicants being soul and body, but you also have androids that are watching humanity. Like, hello? I mean, of course, if you come from Automata, this doesn't sound crazy at all. But if I'm just putting my mindset in someone who went from Drakengard to Nier before Automata, it's like, hello, androids. Where did they come up with that? Shouldn't they have been combating Y coordination syndrome this whole time? Why did they come up with androids? Okay, it's
That's the
great.
problem. They didn't think to use the androids to fight until 10,000 years later.
Yeah, a little too late on that, guys. A little too late.
All right. Androids, they are set to oversee the replicants. Now, here's the thing that is almost that's it feels so darkly comedic. The replicants are left with fighting Legion. So they take out the soul and then they tell the mindless body, "Hey, look, we need you to go fight the Legion and Red Eye for us." Which, oh my, I don't, I, I know they are shellless human beings, but the thought of that sits so wrong with me.
Even with the similarity of how Automata's plotline works in sense of androids fighting machines, it is even more messed up when you consider that these are people who are partially human and just don't have a soul, and they basically can't really live out their lives how they want. They still have to fight Legion. Legion is still a thing all of these years later. And then to top it off, they're being overwatched by androids, people who aren't even really human. Like, I cannot imagine living in a world like that. That sounds crazy.
It's so dark. You have humans losing their souls, leaving their bodies behind, being left behind in charge with robotic androids that are probably even less human than the empty shells, and being told, "Hey, go clean up the fucking mess that we made." Oh my.
Yeah, go
Okay.
clean up your own mess. Here's some Clorox. Here's a broom. Go do it yourself. We're just gonna sit here and chill and watch over you guys. We're not even human. You go do
Here's a grimoire, here's some mazo. We'll call you in 1,000 years.
it.
All right. Now, the other thing, I directly quoted it because I don't understand what this means. They are left with fighting Legion and gathering Maso sent to the other world in a ceremony conducted by the celebrant android. Did they figure out a way to take the Mazel and send it back where it came from?
From what I honestly remember, this is really where the lore got kind of weird to me. So from what I know, they basically figured out that Maso was going to the world, of course, where Drakengard was from,
Hmm,
and it's a ceremony where the element goes back to the world. But at the same time, they're also using it because, of course, I'm sure you're going to explain, but it creates magic.
hmm.
So it's like, okay, y'all can have it back, but let us keep a little bit. Let's keep a little bit because we need some of that. But most of it, can you go back? I mean, white coronation syndrome already happened. Like we're already screwed. But just take it back. We don't want it, but we do want it. That's what I got from it because they do manipulate it in the events of Nier, Gestalt, and Replicant. Yet they're trying to send it back with this celebrant android thingamajigger. It's really weird how that part of the lore works.
Okay, so then it does sound like they are literally cleanup crew. I didn't realize that. I was joking when I said cleanup crew by
Yeah, they
fighting.
are literally cleanup crew for the Maso energy. They're meant to, of course, fight Legion and also get all of the particles back to the parallel world that Drakengard is from. But at the same time, they are meant to use it for offense as magic.
Jesus. Oh my god. This
I
is
fire what's fire, I guess, but also send the fire back where it came from, which is another world.
I just hate that now I'm imagining these human-looking people, completely blank expression, fighting Red Eye, and then like pulling out like a little like some fucking dusters, like some Swiffer dusters, just picking up the muzzle, like, ah, we gotta get this out of here.
Yep.
Oh my god. Alright. Replicants, of course, empty shells. Now, here is the reason why humanity has survived all the way up until the events of Nier. As long as the gestalt, the soul, the shade, as long as the gestalt exists, replicants will be endlessly copied. So, what would happen is that if someone were to die, their replicant were to die, as long as the gestalt exists, they would be copied again and basically be reborn as a baby to then live again and then die again. However, if there is no soul, there is no replicant. Those who can retain their consciousness after becoming a gestalt have solid amount of muscle in them. And if this were to exist, a person becomes a gestalt and they can still keep their consciousness. What would happen is that you can take the muscle out of them, put it into other gestalts, and at that point, they would be able to contain their own consciousness as well. So, this actually is why I am okay with near Gestalt and near Replicant existing in the same timeline, even if they take only a couple of years apart from each other. Because I could imagine that in one timeline, there is a near that is born, and eventually, what ends up happening is that he happens to go on the story that he does in his teenage years instead of whenever he's an adult. But as well, I could also see it being that Yona is the one that is kind of his totem, his anchor that is always the. Now, I'm going to pull up the quote because I really like it. Yona is the distinct pattern in an ever repeating world for him. We'll get to. How do you feel about that assessment?
Yeah, that's a really good assessment. I do think that it is. I do agree with you on how, it could be where he goes through his teenage years or if it's the adult years, but I do very much agree with that Yona. I definitely think that she is the center of what would make which timeline which. I definitely think. Most of
Yeah.
all, with the whole sister daughter differentiation as well, for sure. That's what I agree
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if, with each time that the Gestalt and replicants do not merge together within that generation, what probably happens is that it reboots itself and then sometimes it just messes up. Now, we'll talk about the mess ups later, but just assume it's not a perfect system once the Gestalt and replicants do not merge. If they do not merge, reboot, and then things get weird again. So now, of course, we have gotten to 2033, 1 year after the replicant and gestalt process has begun, and only the rich of the rich can afford to have it done for them. We get to the Grimoire Weiss short story, and then there were none. But here's the thing, I have said many wrong things. Mugetsu, correct me.
Right. So what happened was in February 2032, what happens is the wealthy upper class citizens are the first to enter the Gestaltization program. But after, I would say it's about the end of March when all of the Maso is being gathered and sent back to the other world. What happens is by that point, everyone has undergone Gestaltization and everyone's replicants are created. Now, of course, what happens is most of this process is high cost, as you can imagine. So the rich people are given the priority, but there's a point where basically everyone in a world is mandated to undergo it. Everyone's gestalts are then put to sleep, and they are meant to sleep permanently until the time comes when the global pandemic is over. That's what happens. March 2032, of course, everyone is gathering Maso. They're combating Legion, and that's going over to the world of Drake. That's what happens.
God. I'm going to end up losing my status as the biggest Nier fanboy, and it's going to be because of these corrections. All right. So, 2033, 1 year after the gestaltation process is beginning, we have the short story for Grimgar Weiss, and then there were none. So, Weiss, he is not given a name during this short story. So, even though we call him Weiss, that is just supposed to be for the audience. Now, Weiss, he is age 19. He is still human. He is not a book. He is in a room with 9 men and 4 women, and all of them are apparently the same age. Does he know that for sure? No, but he can kind of tell that all of them are probably the same age. What ends up happening is that Weiss has just woken up in this room. He doesn't realize what is going on. He tries to check himself for what's on him. He had a gun on him, but it's not there anymore, and all he sees is a book nearby him. He starts checking every single backhanded weapon he has. There's even, I think, a wire that they put in his mouth that there's no way anyone who wasn't his employer would know was there. His employer, Hamlin Organization. Why is Weiss 19? He was a child soldier for them during the Legion Wars. Now, what you can assume from here as well is that everyone else in that room, age 19, if they are in this room as well, they were probably child soldiers as well. From here, he realizes that he has been kidnapped by his own organization that he's employed by. Now, Mugetsu, I feel like I stumbled through that. Did I screw up anything yet?
Actually, believe it or not, I haven't heard this one yet. So
Ooh,
you take the reins from here. I have not heard this one.
ooh, all right. Okay, I will try even my deftest hand to make sure that I don't screw this up. What ends up happening is that Weiss, having been a child soldier for the Hamlin organization, what he starts recalling is that he was told a while back, someone came up to him from the Hamlin organization and said, "Hey, we have a mission for you. You can accept or refuse it, but it's up to you if you want to do it. You just have to know that this is top secret. But if you get this job done, we will pay you so much that you are set for life and you will get to retire after." Now, Weiss didn't really think that if the Hamilton organization was giving him such a sweetheart deal, that he would even be able to get out of it alive. But something compelled him that even off the off chance that this could work, he will be set for life. So he decides that fuck it. I'm going to take the chance. He was a soldier for 9 years. He started at the age of 10, and he is trying to get out already. God, that is so fucking dark, the idea that a 19-year-old probably has the same amount of battle wounds that a person who has probably been in the army and in armed conflicts for 9 years.
Tiny years.
Yeah. Not only do you think about that, but the fact that he was fighting Red Eye and Legion for 9 years as a kid and he survived.
Whew,
All right.
that is a veteran right there.
Yeah, and then he can't even drink yet, at least in the US. I'm pretty sure he's in Japan, so he probably can, but God. So Within this room of 9 men, including himself, and 4 women, he sees one woman that is nearby. And he remembers that in one of the crusades that they took in fighting Legion, that he had worked with her. Now, there is a small segment that segues into why child soldiers were used for the Hamlin organization. Like I said, of course, it was because they were more immune to the medicine. However, into the quote. The problem is that it is impossible to mass produce this Lusfras medicine. Besides, its effects have only been confirmed among the young. The younger, the higher the efficiency. So, in other words, the younger that the kid was, the better that the medicine worked. So, in other words, it incentivizes them to not only have child soldiers, but go as young as possible as they could to hold a gun. Back to the quote. Thus, children with high physical ability are selected, administered with the valuable Lusfras, and assigned to the extermination of the legions. The international organization that trains and dispatches these children is the Hamler organization. Weiss goes and talks to the woman. They try to figure out what each other of them know. They catch up a little bit, and what Weiss remembers is that the woman that he's speaking to wasn't exactly the best fighter when they first met, but they had spent enough time together back in their days during the fight against Legion that he was able to train her. So he's getting close to her and trying to figure out, hey, what the hell's going on here? While they're trying to talk and figure out what's going on and catching up, there is a heated argument between a man and a woman that is completely besides them. The woman slaps the man, and as he grabs her, her book that is nearby her pulls out a gigantic bloody fist, grabs him, and crushes him to death. But after he is dead, the book that is nearby him opens up and sucks him in. Now, after this happens, the normal looking book has a face that gets put on this book. It looks nothing like the man who was just killed, it is just a metallic face. Now, who do we know that has a metallic face on a book? Grimoire Weiss. Not only Grimoire Weiss, Grimoire Noir. So, this story is telling us how the books are created. Now, after the man is crushed, what Weiss finds out is that the books that each of them were given are grimoires, books of magic. What they are told over the intercom is that you need to use the books to kill everyone else in the room. And once there are only 2 people left alive, we will stop. Now, here's the thing. What they are told as well is that if you try to just kill people without the book, it does not count. If you try to choke someone out and you're not using the book, instead, that other person will die into their book and you too will be sucked up into your own book. You must use the power of the book to kill everyone else. Weiss looks at the woman that he helped train, and they both look at each other and go, okay, they said 2 of us can survive. Let's work together and make sure that we're the last 2. But here's the problem. In the war that they had fought against Legion, she was about to die, and Weiss, in a split second, decided to try to sacrifice and save her. He doesn't die, but this woman remembers this. The reason this is important is because when Weiss and the woman decide to work together, someone tries to kill Weiss, and the woman decides, this is my chance to clear the debt, and sacrifices herself. Weiss is the only one that sees her die, and what ends up happening is that Weiss completely is torn apart and cries out to the fact that this woman has just died in front of him. Everyone is dead by the time that he lets up. Now, I'm going to read it exactly. In a fit of rage, Weiss cries out and his grimoire takes over. All are dead except him. He saw words as covering his eyes. A man shows up with a book. He's the one who killed the others. 2 left, but they both end up getting sucked into their books. They weren't promised to be let go, just survive. What ends up happening is that the Hamlin organization had no intentions of ever paying anyone out. They just needed people to come in. What ends up happening is that no matter who you are, you got sucked into the book. If you were just the last one, that just means you only got to learn that you were getting betrayed. Not only does he see the other person who survived, the person is getting sucked into the book, and Weiss is getting sucked into his own book. And what he finds out is that, well, not finds out. He tells us that the loose frost medicine could only delay the onset of the white chlorination syndrome, but not prevent infection, and that the reason that the child soldiers were used were because they were easily disposable even afterwards. It's very God, this is so dark. It is easier to get rid of a child than it is an adult. After all of this, Grimoire Weiss is finally born. Mugetsu. How about that fucking story?
That is, it is dark as we keep saying, and holy shit, what a journey he's gone through. And he hasn't even gone through the actual journey of the game, and he's already been through so much shit. That's blows me away.
Just the fact that so when Weiss gets sucked away into his book, he's not even shocked. He's just like, "Yeah, this is the company I work for, all right."
Yeah, this is what's happening to me. Oh well.
I it gets even oh my god, it gets darker because then you start imagining that not only is he thinking that because, well, that's my fault for trusting them. Not only that, you could also imagine that he being a child soldier is just way more mature than his age would let you believe. So not only is he 19, the man is probably more like 50 or something with the amount of trauma that he has. So one, it's him going, well, that's my fault for trusting them. But second, the fact that he's so mature to the point from all of his experience that he's just like, yeah, you know what? Life isn't fair. I get it. Grimoire Weiss deserves nothing but love. I. All
You are correct.
right. Back to lore. Now, in the correction that we had, right? This is where I had initially thought that the gestaltation process was only saved for the rich because at some point the Hamlin organization enacts the Salvation Support Plan. What this was is a plan to try to get people in with the promise of food and medical care. It didn't matter who you are, the idea would be, hey, do you need any of this? We are here to help you. However, you can never trust the Hamlin organization. Because apparently, what they did instead is that they were on the search for the original Gestalt. Now, what is the original Gestalt? The original Gestalt is someone who could become a Gestalt and keep their consciousness. Now, as I had explained earlier, the original Gestalt is that they can keep their consciousness. Whoever can keep their consciousness has solid enough muscle in them that if you were to extract them and put that into other Gestalts, they too would be able to keep their consciousness, which would basically mean that Gestalts would have no danger of ever losing their mind, and in that case, basically ceasing to exist. That's why it's so important for a Gestalt to keep their consciousness, so then they can be brought back when the time is right. So my confusion with this was that I thought only the rich in 2032 were allowed to turn into gestalts, and then I thought the salvation support plan was going to be crowdfunding people into getting tricked into becoming a gestalt. Now, this is finally when we have our titular characters show up. Not even in the game, but the prologue. No, sorry,
We're
not even
barely
the
getting to the
prologue.
prologue. Barely the prologue.
Prologue. We are so far an hour and 20 minutes in of recording, and we're just barely getting to the game because that's the kind of series that the Drakengard lore gives you. Nier and Yona. Now, I am not going to put whether if it's brother Nier or father Nier. I will only explain once if it's one or the other. We'll get there. But Nier and Yona, as actual humans, go to a salvation support. And what ends up happening is that they are provided Grimoire Noir books, and they just look at the books, but they don't touch them. What ends up happening is that while they're waiting for food and medical care, some people start touching the books and they turn into gestalts. Nier and Yona run the hell away from here. Just completely go away. And what they do is that they end up in a very rundown, broken market. And here, finally, we get to the actual opening of the game. But keep in mind, it's not even the prologue, it's the Pro-Prologue, because that's just what Yoko Taro likes to do. Nier Pro-Prologue. Summer 2049. Trying to remember the song.
Oh, infamously known as Snow
Snow.
in Summer, which did
Thank you.
happen. Which did happen last year in Japan. There was a
Yes.
point in the middle of, I don't remember if it was June or July, but there was snow, and all of a sudden I just heard, oh, oh. I was like, oh my goodness,
It's happening.
this is the craziest year. Near in real life, we're all gonna turn into salt. Oh my goodness.
Good. I wasn't the only one who remembered that. Oh my
Yeah.
god, when I saw that shit, I love seeing the few people on Twitter who were like, "Oh god, it's happening. It's happening. Everyone stop touching books. We can't do this."
And one thing that I just want to add is that prologue, which we're about to keep going over, is the coolest intro I've had to a game. That song, if anyone listening has not heard it, you need to pause this and go listen to that song and just close your eyes because it starts off so perfect, and when it gets to the drums, those drums sound so
Oh man.
intense. It is one of my favorite battle themes I've ever heard. I love the entire tone of the prologue. It is so mysterious, and that is honestly one of the biggest reasons why I'm hyped to play Replicant when it comes out in a few days. I just so badly want to see that prologue again with this new engine. I want to see it. It's so good.
We'll get to. Man, I'm about to tell you something, and you're gonna be very excited, and you're gonna be just crawling in jealousy.
Play it on me.
When I went to Chicago in January 2020, it was for the Near concert, and they opened up with Snow and
Snow and
Summer.
Summer.
Yeah,
Ooh. Actually, I think I saw that. I did. And yeah, I saw that concert on a video with the Snow and Summer opening, and oh, I got chills. I got chills. It
dude, it
That is a
is.
masterpiece song for me.
You
So good.
hear it, and you feel your soul leaving your. You feel your gestalt leaving your replicant behind. That is the entire concert. It's incredible live, and I hope that one day you get to experience it because
And that's another thing
oh,
I did forget to mention. Not only is there so much side lore that you don't even get in the games, of course, like the hour of lore we just went over, and you got the novellas. You've even got concerts. You don't see concerts for many things. Like a big series like Assassin's Creed has had one concert. Of course, Final Fantasy has numerous concerts. That's probably the closest thing. But there are tons of near concerts, and there's actually one that just came out this year that is now on Blu-ray release on the Square Enix website called the One 2021 concert. They are still bringing out these concerts even this year, and of course with Replicant V 1.2 coming out, this series is still going strong. And we also have a mobile game that's being currently localized called Nier Reincarnation, which still continues the story. Nier is it's crazy how Automata came out and it was so niche, and then all of a sudden it blows up. Everyone is discovering, of course, Gestalt and Replicant. Everyone demanded Replicant get released in the US, and Yoko Taro and Square Enix said, hey, let's do it. And that's not even where they stopped. We have reincarnation, we have concerts constantly. A book just came out, I believe it was at the end of last year, maybe, called Your Hot Boys, which is takes
oh,
place before Automata starts, which I have it, and I'm not gonna lie to you, as knowledge as I am with this lore, I haven't started it. It's so crazy how expansive this world is. It's so expansive that we've done an entire hour and we've barely just reached the game. Barely.
now your hub boys. I could have sworn that that was a play too, or am I imagining that?
That's exactly what it was. It's a play, and I believe this is the novelization of the play. That's what I
Oh, okay,
remember.
okay. Would you like me to tell you what the point of your hub boys is?
Yeah, you can go ahead and tell me.
The point of Yorha Boys is that Yorha tried to have male androids, but Yorha Boys explains why, yeah, here's the thing, we're gonna have females do this instead because you guys don't get along.
That's fair. That's fair.
So,
That's totally fair.
near.
Still, it's probably a good read though, but yeah, that sounds fair for a plot summary. for sure.
It's still
Yeah.
funny to me though because it just seems like I don't think anyone was questioning why it was just female androids. But okay, cool.
Of course, aside from the S models, but yeah, I wasn't really questioning it. I was just like, hey, more power to you. But now
Uh,
that actually makes perfect sense. The boys just couldn't get along, so they just leave the one S models.
I'll leave you with that one to read it because they actually explain why specifically they were made only S models. Yeah. Why is there an explanation for everything in the series?
Everything, every single thing. It goes so out of control sometimes. Like we've gone from a disease that turns you into salt or makes you a mindless slave to gods, or you're just straight up becoming a soulless body and your soul becomes and oftentimes a feral beast that goes berserk and is called a relapse gestalt. Like it's gone spiraled already and we haven't even gotten to the part where there's androids. Like it gets crazier from here. Yeah, even though it goes as crazy as androids, there's still an explanation for it. There's always an explanation. Like I could not imagine how long it took Yoko Taro to come up with all this. I mean, if he came up with all this in one night, more power to him. But I wouldn't be surprised if it took him at least 4 years to write all this lore because there's so much of it.
He does have two extra writers that did help him with the short stories. So there are two writers that do provide some of the input, but they
And one of
usually
them is Jun Aishima, right?
yes, correct.
I don't know who the other one is though. That
Yeah.
one,
I don't remember either, but I just know in my extensive research, I thought, are they important for the summary? No. Should I have provided them credit? Yes. But I try to keep it very concise. I feel
I believe Jun Aishima is the one who's writing mostly Automata lore, at least. Like, I know Jun Aishima wrote Your Hot Boys. I think the screenplay was done by Yoko Taro, but Jun Aishima wrote the actual story. Same thing for long story short and short story long. So I believe Jun Aishima has connections with all of it, but mostly the work is focused on Automata. That's
mhm.
what I remember.
Yeah, I but that name does sound familiar with the only book that Nier got, which was called Grimoire Noir, which is where all these short stories are coming from.
Yeah, Jun Aishima did do that. That's what I remember too. Yeah.
Which, by the way, God bless all the people who worked on translating that because Grimoire Nier is not in English whatsoever. So we were
Absolutely.
reading translations that people in Japan or people who can speak Japanese translated over, which this spoiler cast would be impossible to do without their work. So I know they'll never hear this, but thank you to those people. You guys have done amazing work.
Absolutely. And honestly, thank you also to Jun Aishima for participating in all this. Like
Yes.
making like not only has she made all these year stories, but off topic, but she's also done a lot of side stories for the Final Fantasy universe, and they have been really well acclaimed books. I own the Final Fantasy 13 books. She's a really talented writer, and I can definitely see why Yoko Taro teamed up with her for sure. She has really excellent writing. So not only props to her, but props to the translation team too, because when these stories are translated, it is just you're witnessing pure beauty in written form with these stories. She's such a talented writer.
One of my favorite short stories is the mermaid one that pops up later because the writing in that one, like it's funny because in the document that I had, would copy and paste quotes in, and the tone she sets in the Little Mermaid one lets me realize, man, she is not only is she talented, but whoever did the localization for that nailed whatever she was going for because that is the correct tone that short
Right.
story is supposed to have. And you know what? Screw it. Since we are already going down this tangent, holy shit, how about Kechi Okabe, man? How about him and
Don't even
Emmy
get me
Evans?
started. Don't even get me started. Don't, because Keiichi Okabe is besides Sawano Hiroyuki, Keiichi Okabe is my favorite composer ever. I remember before I even touched Drakengard 3, I accidentally got a peek at the soundtrack, and I believe I don't want to assume, but there was a certain boss fight. I believe it's the first one that you do, and I heard that guitar rip in, and I was just blown away that this guy can make so many different genres of music for his games. Automata has, I think, three entire different genres. Drakengard 3 has it has the arrangement kind of vibe, and then it also has these rock songs. That that guy is a beast. Like, oh my goodness. I can listen to Nier or Drakengard music for hours, and I can't get enough of that music. I can't.
Keiichi Okabe is a fucking master. And I can't believe that the same publisher who is cutting Keiichi Okabe checks is also cutting Yoko Shimomura checks. Like, the
Right.
fact that these two people are still working underneath the same publisher, just. I'm so happy that they're working at Square Enix because it doesn't seem like any other video game publisher cares about the music they put out. And Square Enix knows that the music is so important that they're pretty much the only publisher that consistently has concerts, whether if it's Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, or Nier. This music is so good
And
that
I'll
they
tell you
will
what, to
release an
people
Easter eggs.
listening, if you may even think right now, say you're completely new to Nier and Drakengard, you're thinking, I probably have not heard anything by Keiichi Okabe, you would probably be wrong because he has done music for every Tekken game. He's done Namco Classic Collection, I believe. He's done Heavy Metal Thunder. He's even done a Naruto game. He's done some anime games as well as Super Smash Brothers and Final Fantasy. He has done a lot of music, and there was a game I played called Fate Extell a Link, which is a Muso game. And whenever you fight the boss of the specific level, there is a song that starts and it has this guitar solo in it at first, and it escalates. And I was like, this reminds me of Nier. And then I looked up the song, and then I saw that Keiichi Okabe is a composer, and I said, "That's my boy, dude! I knew he made this song." He has such a recognizable style, but it's not even recognizable to the point where it gets old. It is always fresh. If honestly, I can't wait to play Reincarnation because I want to see what new tracks he's made for it. He is just a genius of music. He knows how to make those notes.
Everything you said is anything I could have said. God bless you. Now, I looked through his list, and now I told myself I was going to play Nier Reincarnation. I was going to sin and play a mobile game to get this one, and if it needed it, I'd probably make a spoiler cast for that too. The reason I bring this up is that I did not know he was going to compose the music for this game. Holy shit. He's
At this point, I have just assumed that if anything will have Nier on it, and it's not going to be a written document, and it's going to be like a movie or a show or something, Keiichi Okabe is going to be there because I was in the same boat as you. I didn't think he was going to come back for Reincarnation. I thought they were going to use someone else, but I saw, lo and behold, Keiichi Okabe composer, and I said, "Oh my god, dude! Oh my god!" He keeps coming back, and he's going to take all my money because as soon as Reincarnation soundtrack is ever released for public, cha-ching, you get all my money, and I will let you have it. Keep my money.
the one track that I have on YouTube for Near Reincarnation. I just go back to it every once in a while, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is everything I want. It's just so quiet and it's so slow, but it feels like they're getting ready to hit you with some emotions. But not only that, eventually what clicks in is just the sound of this small child going,
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I love that song.
oh, it you hear it and you're just like, "Yes, I'm ready to hurt again. Please, Yoko, please hurt me as hard as you want to." Oh my god. I even sent you the link just because I was thinking, you maybe you have it, and then you said you did. So all we'll do is that once we're done with
Yep.
all of this, I'm probably going to listen to it.
Exactly. And I'm gonna put it on repeat.
Okay. I feel like that was a good tangent point. A good tangent point to go back and
Yeah,
look at just everyone who isn't Yoko Taro, that these are people that need to be thanked.
absolutely.
You know what? Thank you, Square Enix, as well, for even allow. No, hold on. I'm not going to thank Square Enix because I know that they would have probably killed Yoko Taro if they had a chance. God bless Yosuke Saito for wanting to try different things and why he's the person at Square Enix that keeps pushing for Yoko Taro to get another game.
I agree completely with that
Yeah,
statement.
Yosuke Saito, that is the man who probably deserves the biggest thanks because if he didn't have Dragon Quest underneath his belt, and he has a long ass fucking bat that he can smack around with people and going, Do you want to fuck with Dragon Quest? If you want to fuck with Dragon Quest, you can do that. Or you can greenlight Yoko Taro's next game so I can work on it. Like, I can't believe that this man has the balls on him to be able to get every single Yoko Taro game greenlit. And that's apparently how important Dragon Quest is. Wow.
Wow, indeed.
Nier Pro-Prologue. Summer 2049. Snow in summer. Nier and Yona, they are running away from the Hammond organization. You don't know this, but that's exactly what happened. They are in this decrepit grocery store. Now, Yona is sitting there. Both she and Nier are really hungry. There is nothing that they have that can be eaten. This grocery store is completely empty, but Nier is there trying to keep them safe. What ends up happening is that there is a Grimoire Noir that is there. Of course, as you know from the lore, the Grimoire Noir will eat you up and turn you into a Gestalt. They both already know this, and Nier tells Yona, no matter what you do not touch that book. Nier is protecting them, and Gestalts begin attacking them. Now, Nier is fighting, but the assumption is supposed to be that even if you're doing good, you're getting your ass kicked. So, what Nier does is that in a fit of desperation, he touches Grimoire Noir. And this is where you get that thing, that a trope that was in a whole bunch of games, where you will fight enemies, you will be given your entire suite of weapons just to get a feeling of what you'll be like when you're super powerful, and then it gets taken away from you. So that is completely fine, and you want to know why? Because as Mugetsu so beautifully said it, Snow in Summer is one of the greatest opening tone setter tracks to have ever existed. It is almost on the same level. No. I'm going to say it is above the level of Gustavo Santaoyala's guitar playing over the opening credits of The Last of Us. If you remember the
Absolutely
guitar
agree.
picks of that and how you can hear society dropping as he plucks his guitar, Snow in Summer is society is already gone, and there is nothing you can do about it. Snow in Summer, ooh,
It's basically just a song telling you this is the world that you're going to be in, and you have to deal with it. And you have to deal with these crazy relapsed gestalts coming after you. Unless, of course, you can change the system.
now, Grimoire Noir. You touch him, you fight all these enemies. The music starts getting hype as shit until you finally defeat the boss. Nier goes back in to Yona. And Yona, this is the moment that you're supposed to like Yona. Now, here's the thing, in video games, it just seems like if you are around a kid, you just want to throttle their neck. That's just how it goes. So, what they do is that they give you a small scene of Yona breaking out a cookie and giving Nier a piece. Now, here's the thing, whether if you are replicant Nier or your Gestalt Nier, whether if you're brother Nier or father Nier, this still works because she is the person you are taking care of, and she's still trying to care for you, even if she's a, I think, 6-year-old kid. Is she 6?
I believe that
Okay.
is the case. Yeah, she's like
So this 6-year-old girl is trying to feed you, even if it's the absolute worst setting that can be made. So after this happens, what you find out is that after Nier had touched Grimoire Noir, he is given those powers to use the blood looking magic. What ends up happening is that while he's out there fighting the magic, Yona touched Grimoire Noir and begins to have a black scroll around her. Now, this is a good time as any to explain what the black scroll is. Mugetsu, do you know what it is?
I'm not gonna say I know the detail of it.
Okay. So the way that I understood the Black Scroll, I'm confused about it here, but the way I understand it is that the Black Scroll, when it infects people, what ends up happening is that it is supposed to be a corruption of the Gestalt. If the Gestalt is corrupted, the replicant will start getting that Black Scroll on them. So what ends up happening?
Right, right. Yes, I remember. Right. It's a malfunction of the replicant body when it's relapsing with their current gestalt, or not the current, their corresponding gestalt. It's a malfunction of it. So when the gestalt fully relapses, the replicant of the gestalt can't be recreated at
Mhm.
all. It can't be recreated by the replicant system. And that's the curse that Yona has.
So Yona was a human at that point. So did she touch the book, get split, and then what we see being infected with a black scrawl, is that already replicant Yona?
That's what my understanding was, is that it was already replicant Yona, and her gestalt is basically fully relapsed already.
Okay. Uh, Now, jumping into even more darkness, no matter what ending you get, Yona still dies from the Black Scrawl. Yoko Taro loves his happy stories, as you can tell.
Which of course happens because her gestalt is fully relapsed, which means there's no coming back
Mhm.
basically. Once your gestalt fully relapses, the replicant copying system halts. You can't go any further. Your gestalt has to be unrelapsed, uncorrupted in order for you to continue replicate yourself, which is why, of course, before we got to this point, what happened was people that were gestaltized, they would have their gestalts go to sleep permanently until the pandemic was over so that people could keep copying over the replicant. At this point, Yona's has already been relapsed, so the Black Scrawl is affecting her because she's a replicant. And she touched Grimoire.
Now, the way that the prologue ends, it's Nier holding Yona as she starts getting the Black Scrawl in her, and then we pull back. So, the funny thing is that this is a prologue, meaning that it's going to be about 1,000 years before we get into the game. So let's get into that lore, shall we?
Right.
Now, in between, off screen, this is no longer game. We're getting into lore shit. All right. So when Nier touched Grimoire Noir, he was turned into a Gestalt. So that means that the one that we were controlling was a Gestalt. So what we find out is that if we were controlling a Gestalt, he kept his consciousness. What does that mean? Nier is the original Gestalt. He is someone who can keep enough solid muscle in himself. He was able to keep his consciousness, meaning that if the Hamlin organization was able to take the muscle out of him, he could be the key to getting humans remade by getting the replicants and the Gestalt back together. Now, this being an important fact, the Hamlin organization decides to get into contact with Nier. I assume there might be something in the book that lets them know, hey, holy shit, this guy touched me and he did not go into a normal Gestalt as we would know. So what they tell him is that, hey, we will want to harvest your muscle. We want to harvest it because you are going to be instrumental in making sure that the white chlorination syndrome stands back and that we have enough time to try and get humans and replicants together once we can start splitting up enough people.
The one thing that they will do for Nier in exchange for this is that they will cryogenically freeze Yona for 1,000 years, which, funny enough, won't actually do anything for her. But I don't believe Nier actually knew this,
Correct.
and that's why he went along with it. I don't believe he knew that it wouldn't do anything for her. But yes, it would be 1,000 years of pointless
Mhm.
cryogenic freeze.
Now, Nier, of course, has not dealt with the Hamlin organization. And now that we're almost an hour and 40 minutes here, you know the Hamlin organization isn't someone you trust whatsoever. So, Nier, of course, not knowing this, goes, okay, you're going to cryo freeze Yona. They even tell him, hey, we'll freeze her, and then you do all this, and once you're done, we'll unfreeze her, and you guys can go back to doing what you need to do. Come on, it's 1,000 years. We'll figure out how to cure the Black Scrawl. Lies. Now, this is all in 2049. We're now jumping to 2764. Nier has been creating all of this muscle, and he's been able to keep things pretty much stable enough. But the problem is that in 2764, replicants start gaining sentience. Mugetsu, is there anything that I missed in between there? Because at least when I started reading, it seems like whenever Nier is in charge of using his muscle, things are pretty okay.
Yeah, it's a good nearly 700. No, actually, it's a good 700 and change years from the point that he starts controlling his own Maso that we get to, of course, where the replicants are. scrubbing everything. That's what we talked about, where they're trying to get rid of the moss. So it's a good 700 years of nothing too crazy happening. Which, holy crap, that's so long. 700 years. I couldn't imagine being alive for 700 years.
Can you
Goodness.
imagine working for 700 years without stop?
I mean, does he even get paid? Like, what was? What? How did that work? What did he find to spend any funds on in 700 years? Like, goodness, I'd be tired by that point. I'd be tired.
I'm tired from the most minor of things. I can't even imagine working 10 hours straight. Now they have me working for 700 years. I mean, this is how you're supposed to know that Nier is the original replicant, because this man worked for 700 years and was still able to keep his consciousness because of Yona. He did all of this to make sure that Yona technically didn't die, because if you freeze someone, it's not like they're technically dead. So,
In which we can use this to go back to the infamous Yona quote, which is, of course, true by this point. 700 years. She's the key to all of it.
yes.
It's true. It's all because of Yona.
Which is funny because I think somewhere in the documents for Automata actually mentions Yona, and I remember playing the game. I was like, I have no idea who this is, and I just kept playing.
Yeah, it was in the library. Yeah, it was one of those documents that you saw that also explained the tower. Yeah, they talked about how Yona had the black scroll and everything, and yeah, she's the key. It's all her.
So, yeah, look, I'm going to jump to a fact of ending A. Nier destroys the world. I just feel like I need to say this. Nier fucking destroys the world, and all this would have been fine had he just kept doing what he was doing. So,
Yeah, Nier is the reason why humanity falls out. It's him. And there's no sugarcoating it either. You can point your fingers right at Nier, and he just has to deal with it because he did it. He fucked over
now
humanity,
Now
plain
the
and
best
simple.
part is that not only is it one Nier, it's all fucking three of them. Human Nier decided to touch the book, Gestalt Nier decided to stop making the muscle, and then Replicant Nier decided to ruin the ability to join the Gestalts and Replicants together. So it's his fault three fucking times.
Yep.
This game is so good.
Yeah, you can still tell yourself that he's not a horrible person. It's just, wow, he had some really bad circumstances that led to the decision, and he chose the one that screwed over the
I
world.
still love him though.
This is another comparison that you can honestly make with The Last of Us.
Oh no.
It's just like how Joel. Well, we could say
Oh,
this, right? I mean, this is a
okay,
2013
yeah, no,
game,
go for
right?
it. I will put a stamp. So here's
Yeah.
count it down 3, 2, 1 with enough space.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. It's just like how at the end of The Last of Us, Joel makes a choice to basically save Ellie, and when he saves Ellie, he basically screws over humanity's future. It's another comparison you can make, just like with that guitar solo in the beginning of the game. It's the same kind of whole dilemma at the end where Joel, you can't even call him a horrible person because he did something human, which was he chose his loved one over humanity. He may not have even realized that he was screwing over humanity, but that's what happened. It's the same thing.
I am so behind near fucking up everything though for his sister. Am I sitting here and saying, yeah, just let your sister fucking die? No. I'm just saying,
It's like, yeah, you have to imagine yourself in his shoes. That's why you can't blame him, because if it was my sister, I would choose my sister over humanity. I mean, yeah, that means I'm gonna die pretty soon. I mean, I don't know how many years, but that's my sister, man. That's the closest person I've got in this world. Yeah. Because what's the point in living in a world without them? Why sacrifice them?
correct.
What's the point?
You're not sacrificing the world. They're asking you to sacrifice their world, which
Hmm.
oh my god, I just really like the idea of having. I really like fucked up characters that are still likable and make horrific choices, which is why whenever a character is not likable, even if you do good things, it takes a lot for me to like you. 700 years of Nier just working his ass off to make sure that the world stays in pace, right? 2764. Now, here's the thing Red Eye's bitch ass is back again. 3276. A replicant goes off to the forbidden land of Jerusalem, where one of the final crusades happened, where the original Red Eye died. The replicant goes there because he hears that it's forbidden and he tries to bring back his dead lover. The Red Eye that was left behind there tries to control him by mimicking the dead lover. What he does is that he kills the replicant and he takes over that person and turns them into Legion, which means great. Fucking Red Eye is back and Legion is trying to come back up. But here's the thing, apparently this doesn't matter in the game. 3287, an android and 4 replicants roll up on Red Eye and kill him. But oh, never mind. I just remembered why it's important. They kill Red Eye, and what ends up happening is that Masl spreads out into the world again. But apparently, this is the last time Red Eye and Legion pop up ever. Just I don't see anything in Automata. I don't see anything beyond this point. Apparently, you can count out Red Eye and Legion by the time that we get to 3287. 3288. Gestalts start waking up, and what ends up happening is that some of the androids start reporting positive reports about moving Gestalts back into replicants. Now, by the time that we get to 3300, Gestalt Nier, he's been creating Masa for, at this point, what, 20? I'm gonna actually pull up a calculator because I am lazy for math now. He's been doing overtime. He's been creating Masa for 1,251 years. This man went overtime for 251 years,
Goodness.
and he realizes that at this point the Hamlin organization, they're probably not gonna hold up the end of their deal by trying to get the Black Scroll fixed. Mugetsu, that's the lore section. I toss it over to you. Anything that I said wrong, thoughts about this, go on.
Woo, that is, like we said earlier, it's a long time to be working. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I mean, maybe I could if it was my sister slash daughter, but wow, that's a lot.
All right,
Mm-mm.
we have the short story from Nier's perspective, Red and Black. Now, remember how I mentioned that I was only going to bring up the difference in the time between the games. So here's the thing. Nier Gestalt, when it opens up in the prologue, takes place in 3361. Nier Replicant takes place in 3465. This is how it makes sense to me that since it is about 100 years in between, I could imagine that Nier at some point dies, and then what they do is that they reboot again, and Nier basically goes through the same story, but from a different age point. So, why am I even mentioning this? The Red and Black takes place in 3463, 2 years before the events of the game. This story specifically is about teenage Nier. So, this is where it gets messy. Everything that I've said so far, you could pretty much tell yourself, oh, this story could fit either Papa Nier or Brother Nier. But this is the only time that they make it a very definitive thing. No, no, no. This is Brother Nier. So 3463 is it. This is probably more important for Replicant and Replicant V1.2, but that's going to matter later. So, what is Red and Black? It is a Nier short story. Nier wakes up one day and he is working around the village. Now, the village, of course, is the one that you spend most of the game in. Now, he's working his ass off. He works in the mornings. He tries to make sure that he can always get money to be able to take care of him and Yona. They live in that exact same house. There's an explanation for that house. With one of the jobs he takes, he receives payment as a little chick. And it seems that most of the payment he gets is never actually full on money. It's supplies that he can use to be able to, live off of. What ends up happening is that we get a little bit of backstory about Nier and Yona. Both of his parents are dead, and their father had died a long time ago, but their mother had died at this point 5 years ago. And they specifically mentioned that Nier was 10 when she died, and Yona was 1.5. So that means that teenage Nier, at this point in the story, is 15, meaning that whenever the game starts, he is 17 in 3465. That was a lot. So I'm going to roll it back. 10 when his mom dies, 15 at the time of the story, 17 by the time the game starts the prologue. Clear, clear. So Yona, 1.5 when their mom died, 6.5 when this story happens. So then she is 8.5 whenever the game has its prologue. Cool.
Gotcha.
What Nier does from here is that he goes in and delves into his mother's death because he still remembered that one. Through some of the interviews that Yoko Taro did, he implies that Nier didn't exactly have the best relationship with his mom. From here, during her funeral, he doesn't really react to her death that much. But what ends up happening is that at some point, it just hits him that all he has in this world is just Yona. And he just starts bawling. He just can't, he's just uncontrollably crying. But what ends up happening is that since he's holding Yona, who at this point is a year and a half old, Yona starts crying with him. But what he realizes is that if he stops crying, so does Yona. And Yona is completely reliant on Nier. And he realizes he can't show weakness because he has to be strong for Yona. So that's pretty much the background. What ends up happening is that Yona starts coughing. Apparently, she's very prone to get sick. And the reason for that is that, of course, this is replicant Yona. This is replicant Nier. What ends up happening is that the gestalt for Yona, of course, had touched Grimoire Noir. And since she touched it at that point, she is already corrupted, meaning that, oh, wait, it just clicked with me. Why? So, in other words, Yona had gotten probably the White Chlorination Syndrome at the Pro-Prologue, and since she touched Grimoire Noir, that's what the corruption is, and that's what causes the Black Scrawl. Am I wrong?
Right, yeah. That's basically what happens is it corrupts the whole white coronation
Okay, perfect. All right. Hey, cool. Doing this made me learn something. All right. Woo.
system.
um Going back, Yona, of course, very prone to get sick because her gestalt was corrupted when it was frozen. Now, Nier is super protective of Yona and is like, "Ooh, okay, we gotta take you to Devla and Popola. This isn't really working out." Devla tells him, "Hey, don't worry about it. It's fine." Nier goes back home, and Yona basically throws up a black substance that smells like blood and starts showing up with the black scroll. Devil and Popola show up, and from there, what ends up happening is that they tell him, "Hey, look, we were really hoping it wasn't the black scroll, but that black substance is definitely a cause of it. It's incurable, and the most you can do is make sure that Yona doesn't die painfully." So Nier is like, whatever I need to do to make sure that she's comfy. But the problem is that the medicine that he needs to make her not feel as much pain is ridiculously expensive. He has savings, but he has enough savings to pretty much buy the medicine a couple of times instead of continuously for the rest of her life. What he ends up finding out is that when he tries to find more jobs to be able to pay for this medicine, he realizes that the village he's in is so poor and that the people that were giving him jobs, they couldn't even afford to pay Nier. So that's why they paid him in supplies, because they knew that he's a good kid and they wanted to be able to still support him. So the village is so
Right.
poor that they're giving him their own stuff to make sure that he can survive, and they're struggling just as much as he is. You know what? I think that's heartwarming, right? Right? We get to that's the first thing that we have that's heartwarming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good on them for doing that, honestly. Yeah.
But then we start thinking about how depressing it is that all of them are super poor. Oh, okay. You see, thank you, Yoko. Thank you.
Have that little crumb.
That might be the title. Thank you, Yoko. So he realizes that being in the village is not gonna really give him the money that he needs for the medicine. Devla tries to tell him, "Hey, look, there are some people who want to move into the village, and you do have a house. You can come sleep in the library, you sell the house, that's going to give you a good amount of money for the medicine. But the house apparently is the last thing that their parents gave to Nier and Yona. So that is the last connection they have, and Nier cannot bring himself to be able to sell the house. What he ends up doing is that with the very little amount of money that he has, he's been starving himself so he could afford the medicine and food for Yona. And what he does is that he's started gardening outside the house and eating whatever vegetables and fruit come out of there. One day he forgets to water it, and what ends up happening is that he forgot to water it, and the plants have dried up and have completely died. He has no ability to eat food. He won't sell the house, but there is something that he hasn't done in 6 months that he really hates himself for having done once and knowing that he'll have to do it again. Mugetsu, let's pause for a second. Everything from the story. Let's not touch that spot yet. But how about the rest of the story? Thoughts?
What a trip, man. What a trip. Oh my goodness. It's I can't even handle going over some of this lore. Like sometimes I can't even handle going through it a second time because it gets way too painful. The whole gardening thing, it's not going good for him.
The
Not.
painful thing is that he forgot to water once, and that was enough to screw it up.
Yeah, just one time. Like he was doing great and then one little time it just all goes to shit and it's like he can't catch a break. Can't. And he still carries on. Still, that is a man that can literally walk through hell. I can never
Mhm.
be like him.
Now, you know, the funny thing is that there's a trophy in the game to get $1 million in the game, and the easiest way is to literally farm for the lunar tiers. So the funny thing is that I did this, and I would go back into my PS3 and change the time clock to speed up gardening. And if you actually do jump ahead of game, your crops do die. So
Wow.
that's the kind of shit that's in this game. We'll get there later. We'll get there later. So back to the story. What did Nier have to do 6 months ago? He had to sell himself for sex to a man at seafront, which oh, now this is probably going to go a little niche, at least for some of the people here. I know that there's other people who have listened to this that have no idea about this. There is a podcast called Sacred Symbols. It is a phenomenal PlayStation podcast. I decided to be a terrorist and write in each week to try and get on a Nier Spoilercast that they were going to do for Nier Replicant V1.2. And of course, after I know it's never going to happen, but it was still fun regardless. The reason I mention this is that one of the only times that I got read out loud during the episode was when I was memeing about this. I said that it is canonically true that the main character has sold himself into prostitution to pay for himself and his sister. So, reading this story now makes me realize I feel like an asshole for memeing this. Like I feel like such an asshole when I read this. I was like, "Oh my god, I was making this shit for a joke."
Whew.
So let's get back to it. In that time period from 6 months ago, Nier had dealt with a dude who was just creeping on him really hard. And the guy had told him, like, hey, if you ever need money, you know where to find me. The dude is an absolute creep to Nier the entire time that he was in Seafront. But that was another time that he really needed money, so he had to do it. Now, whenever they describe it in the story, they just make it vague that Nier goes back to Seafront. And they do mention that he walks awkward a little bit after that.
Oh.
So it's all in the subtext. Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing. The quote that I have here is just, you see, like I said, what was her name again? One of the writers.
Junichima.
Yes, Junichima. Now, Junichima and whoever translated her work, God bless them. The quote: He felt someone calling his name and stopped. It was Devila. He reached the fountain without realizing. What is it? Are you feeling bad? I'm just thinking. That's fine then. Huh, you tied your hair at the back. It gets in the way. He had gotten into the habit of tying up his hair despite giving it free roam before. Ever since then. I see. You're skilled, huh? Devla said, impressed, and reached out to his hair. It was an innocent gesture. He knew that. He really did. Nier? He swatted away Devla's hand before he realized it. The moment she touched his hair, memories of last night replayed themselves in his mind. Devil would probably scold him if he doesn't say anything, but he couldn't bring himself to speak. Ever since he frequented... Oh, shit. Ever since he frequented... Oh, my God. You know how you realize you read things in your head, and it isn't until you say it out loud that you realize what's going on?
Yeah,
He frequented
yeah,
Seafront. Oh my god, this wasn't a one-time thing.
yeah. The whole awkward walking probably was a regular.
Whoa, okay, alright. Okay, I'm gonna...
Just an income.
Wow, holy shit. Okay. I thought it was a one-time thing 6 months ago, and then one time again, and then he's like, never again. No, he progressively kept doing this for Yona's medicine. Jesus, he loves his sister and or daughter. Well, no, sorry, sister in this case. Okay, back to the quote. Ever since he frequented Seafront, he hated people touching his hair. Not only that, he couldn't stand his own hair touching his soldiers. He couldn't help but remember how the man roughly grabbed his hair and what he was forced into after that. He tried to forget, but those experiences seemed to have been deeply engraved within his five senses and would revive at the most inopportune time to torment Nier. I feel like I already said what I needed to say in the middle. We'll get to anything.
No, it's just they did a really good job of creating traumatic kind of point for him where he doesn't even like his own hair because of course he was getting grabbed while doing the horrible act. That's such a specific little detail, and I while I don't like the actual detail itself, I like the writing choice that he doesn't even like his own hair, which believe it or not, a lot of other people love his hair. I believe even Emil admits that he loves Nier's hair, so that's kind of ironic.
Yes, that is true. He really likes the silver hair once he can finally see him. So, yeah, that probably cuts even deeper whenever you play that and you realize, oh, wow, he probably really doesn't want to be complimented on that. All right. There's another quote, but there is a bridge sentence that I do want to provide. Hopla eventually sees Nier and she tells Nier, like, she provides jobs to him a couple of times, but there's a job that she wants to provide him that she's uncomfortable giving him, which is one to kill shades. Quote: Hopela's eyes weren't filled with sadness or pain, nor were they filled with pity or sympathy. They were filled with another kind of darkness. Nier realized it when he saw those eyes. Hopla, and maybe Devla, knew how he earned enough money to buy the expensive medicine and the price he had to pay. They knew, and that's why he was referred to a high paying job despite its dangers. The moment his secrets were revealed, his face burnt with shame. At the same time, he was thankful for Devla and Popla, who treated him no differently. Why did he even think that he would be looked down upon? There's no way that they would do it. Thank you, Popla. However, the darkness in Popla's eyes did not disappear. Shout out to Devil and Popola. I feel so bad for them. And then when you put Automata on top of it, they didn't deserve any of this.
No, they did not. And then you gotta wonder what other androids in the world were going through shit like that too. It may not even just be them. Like Taro just loves to just punch his characters in the face, like straight up. He just likes to punch them. They're his punching bags.
He will do anything for our enjoyment, but he will go out of his way to make his
Yeah,
characters'
quote
lives
unquote
miserable.
enjoyment. Quote unquote.
So, okay. Nier finds out that the job that he takes, so he actually takes it. He realizes, you know what? I will happily risk my life instead of selling my body again to that man. However, what he ends up realizing is that the job to kill Shades isn't a one man job, and it's another group of people that were hired on. Who is one of them that got hired as well? We're going into quotes again. It's the man from Seafront. Nier's questions about his presence were answered the moment he saw the man's sword. A large number of swords were on display in his house. He bought them all for collecting purposes, and all of them were told of murder. People who have twisted sexual preferences have eccentric collections as well. The two men seemed to know the man from Seafront. Nier could tell from their conversation that they often met each other on jobs like these. The man probably took on shade slaying jobs for a chance to put his collection to practice. You know this kid? Ha, I know him very well, right? The man from Seafront smiled meaningfully at Nier. This kid won't be a burden. He's strong enough to fling away a grown man, and not shoot shabby in speed either. He was talking about their first meeting. Nier's face turned away, but the man still looked upon him in an interest. Don't be fooled by his womanly face. He's quite stubborn. Very good endurance as well. Nier's hands and feet froze out of his own accord. He couldn't even fling away the hand placed on his shoulder. He might be surprisingly useful. Well, I'm also quite interested in seeing him cry in fear at the sign of shades. If you say so, I guess we could take him along. His hatred of that man could not be put into words. However, it was thanks to his words that Nier was able to keep his job. How humiliating. It's for Yona's sake. Everything is to protect her. He gripped his fist tightly and repeated the mantra in his heart. He felt a pressure at the back of his head. What's with that stare, huh? No, it wasn't even strong enough to be called pressure, but Nier couldn't move. Don't think of trying anything funny. I taught you that, didn't I? The man whispered in a deep voice that the other two couldn't hope to catch. His voice and breath flowed into Nier's ears like poison. Nier clenched his mouth tightly. The man's fingers were intertwined in Nier's tied up hair. They pulled and his hair fell loose. The man left laughing. Nier wanted to retie his hair as soon as possible, but he couldn't do it. As he picked up the fallen hair tie, he realizes that his hands were shaking uncontrollably. He saw the man's thin smile. His head was repeatedly showered in blood. He resembled a monster more than human. Maybe he himself had the same expression. He must have been killing these shades wearing the same expression as this man. Somewhere in his heart, he enjoyed the slaughter. 3, 4. He must have been proud of himself for killing all these shades. Now, I do know that I jumped for a second there, so I'll explain. Between shaking uncontrollably and saw the man's thin smile, I forgot to put a line there. What ends up happening is that after Nier has the encounter with the man, they go into the den of the shades, and what ends up happening is that they're killing all these shades, and Nier sees the man, and he's enjoying as he's just killing all this bloodshed. And he just comes to the realization that this man is a monster. Now, this is the well, not I need to set up the final quote as well. Nier has left. He is walking back out of the den where they had fought the shades. There is one man who is going to go in a different direction, and another who is going with Nier back to the village. They talk about it. They talk about, wow, man, yeah, that was crazy. Glad that we left. And then they ask, hey, where's the guy from Seafront? And Nier stays completely silent. The two of them are talking like, I guess he just bailed. Now, this is the quote from Nier's point of view. He looked upon his blood-stained hands, his palms dried in a dark crimson color, a color ambiguous about its nature, human blood or shade blood. The man from Seafront was dead. He didn't have to go to his house ever again. First off, my fucking boy Nier got his revenge.
I really can't blame him for what he did. I mean, not to mention he was going through this at 15. That's such a young age to go through already so much trauma. I really can't blame him for getting that revenge. I would have done the same thing.
I mean, that's the thing. If you're already killing, at that point, you can probably just call it friendly fire.
Yeah.
So, in the short story, we have no idea. We are not told how he killed him. That line that I read is pretty much the only indication that we know that the seafront man is dead and that obviously Nier is the one who did it to him. But we're just not told about it. Was it a friendly fire thing? Did he wait until the other two guys weren't looking and they're like, oh, okay, let's get out of here? And then he just killed him? Who knows? I hate to even think about it. Maybe he even fucking honeypotted him like, hey, we kill all these shades. It would be hot to do it here, which Um, I hate that that thought even came up.
But
This, oh my
Nier is
god, this
smart
was
enough
so
that that
fucked.
is probably something that he did, something on those lines. And of course, he got his enjoyment. So I wouldn't even put it past him to, honeypot and manipulate him into joining him in the room, and then just boom, 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 and he enjoyed every second of it. Like I can imagine him with. Like, it's kind of like sometimes you'll see this in an anime, but there would
Mm,
be blood on his face and everything, and he's probably got this really twisted smile too. Like
yes.
he is just in the moment. That's what I like to imagine is he is smiling very widely while he's got blood on his face. And even in the hair.
Oh god, this is
That's something I'd like to imagine is the blood of the man who grabbed it so much being in his hair. That would be a good detail I'd like to imagine.
I know it's not gonna happen. Now, I can tell you right now, I never considered the idea, what if Replicant V1.2 actually puts in these stories?
Woo, that's gonna be some controversy, I would say, but I wouldn't put it past Yoko Taro to put it in there because I know there was a confirmation that there is more stuff in this remaster, isn't there?
Yeah.
I know that there was confirmation that there's a connection to Automata, but I do know there's added content and or cut out content that's being put in, so that could very well be the case. But that's gonna hit some people hard for sure. I'll be all for it.
Oh, there's so much of this extended lore that I'd love to put in there, but I also feel like, but some of the magic of these games is, hey, you like this? There's so much more to dig into.
Right,
So I
right.
don't know how I feel about it, but I like the idea just because I would want people to have more exposure to these stories. But hey, that's why I'm doing a spoiler cast.
Yeah.
So we finally get to the near prologue.
2 hours and 27 minutes in.
Not even to the actual game yet. We're in game, yes.
Are you sure we won't need to just cut this into two parts at this point? Because we are on page 7 out of 31. I feel like we might have to split this into two spoiler casts.
Listen, if you want to call it at some point where you're like, I was thinking I was just gonna go straight on through. But here's the thing, we've gotten to the point now where it's the actual game, so it's so weird. The content of the game is the shortest part of the fucking Nier spoiler cast.
Right. Well, I will go ahead and say this.
Hmm.
I probably do need to. I definitely don't mind continuing it though. Definitely don't mind.
Hell, yeah, I don't mind cutting it. So if anything, you just tell me when to call it, and then we can call it.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's good with me.
Fair enough. Near prologue. Now, once again, we are in near Gestalt years. So the year is 3361. Like I said, it was going to get weird with the times. So, after the last thing that we saw in game was human Nier holding human Yona and calling out to anyone who could hear because she was getting the black scroll. This was in 2049. We jump to 3361, where we see Nier again. Nier is in this village, the same village from the story, and he is trying to get work from Popola and Devla. Yona still sick, so you have to imagine that Nier is still getting a whole bunch of money to try to make sure that he can get that medicine for Yona. He talks about how the world that they're in is slowly but surely dying, which is funny because it is this jarring image of him saying the world is dying and all you see is just vibrant greenery and you see this bustling village. So it is one of those things that clashes, but I feel like it's intentional just because it's supposed to show you, even though everything looks like it's fine, we are secretly rotting underneath all of this right now. Not only does he talk about the world dying, he just pretty much says, but I do not give a fuck about any of that because as long as I can keep Yona safe, that's all that matters. So from here on, going through the game, You just go forward, keep talking to Devil and Popola. They send you on a small side quest to go get herbs and all that. You come back, Devil is like, hey, thank you for that. Here's the money that you spent on the medicine. Also, here's a little bit extra because we just like you. What ends up happening is that Yona is found in the library that Devila works at, and Nier's like, hey, what are you doing? And Yona's like, oh, I'm reading about things that might cure me. But what ends up happening is that Nier goes out and he keeps working, but then Yona disappears. He goes over to Devla, and Devla says, hey, Yona was asking me about lunar tears. Do you know what that's about? And Nier remembers, oh crap, I told her that lunar tears will grant you wishes. So Yona runs over to the lost shrine, which Devla told her, oh yeah, lunar tears are grown there. So Yona runs away to the lost shrine, which is a forbidden place where there's a whole bunch of shades, and Nier goes, oh shit, she's going to die. So Nier runs over to the lost shrine. Now, what ends up happening is that. Oh, wait, hold on. Interesting fact because I did want to mention it. Devila and Popola grew up in the Lost Shrine. I don't know what this means.
I don't either, actually. Yeah, that's one of the pieces of lore that I didn't really wrap my head around.
Is the idea that. No, actually, no. I don't have a guess for this one. I think we might just have to leave it.
I couldn't figure out anything either.
I think I might just have to call it a lie because there's something else that I actually call a lie. So, we'll get there. You, as Nier, go to the Lost Shrine, you play the game, and you get up to a point where Grimoire Weiss shows up. You don't know him as Grimoire Weiss, you just see him as a floating talking book. You fight him, you beat him down, and he helps you out in destroying the two guardians that are supposed to be protecting Grimoire Weiss. Why are they protecting Grimoire Weiss? Because Weiss is key to getting humanity back. Now, we'll get there. We'll get there. So, this feels like a good point to talk about this. Mugetsu, how do you feel about the gameplay for this? Because if we're talking about a game, but we've been 2 hours and a half talking about a game without talking about the game.
Well, okay, so the gameplay. I mean, I was kind of into it. I remember that there was a. I'm trying to say this right. I remember I couldn't stand the sound effects of the game for some reason.
Yes,
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm remembering it right, but it sounded very it sounded like almost you were
cheap.
yeah, it sounded kind of cheap like you were playing with toy sound effects. I do know from the Replicant V1.2 gameplay we've seen that they definitely cleaned up the sounds, but I just remember the sounds in this game driving me absolutely insane. But I can't even remember most of it because I played it like 2 years ago. I mean, honestly, if Replicant didn't get confirmed last year for a remaster, I would have probably replayed it by now. I can't remember a lot about the gameplay though. I just remember the music and the story with clear knowledge, but not the game. And I guess I do remember clunky animations too.
All right. So, in other words, you are basically remembering the best parts of the game.
Exactly.
I spent 73 hours platinuming this game. And I can tell you right now, the gameplay barely supports 10 hours, let alone 73. Playing this game,
Sounded like it was definitely a chore.
oh, most of this game was a fucking chore to platinum. You can play A run and B run, and it is such a good game. If you go C run and after, and you try to platinum it, good job. Fucking blow your brains out by the time you're done. And I'm shocked that my brains didn't splatter to the wall by the time I plapped that trophy.
Ah,
Now, ugh. So yeah, I feel like going forward, the gameplay is probably not going to get mentioned at all until it has its Yoko Taro switches that he loves to do. So, Grimoire Weiss is in the party now. Popola is always singing the Song of the Ancients whenever you pass by the village. Mugetsu, I have to tell you that 73 hours that I spent trying to platinuming the game, I can tell you right now, it was probably hyperinflated because every time I saw Popola singing, I just stopped.
that I will agree. I did that too. Yep, that's another song I couldn't get enough of was Song of the Ancients.
Song of the Ancients, I think, might be my favorite song in the entire series because of how versatile it is.
Yeah, and they've made so many different versions too.
Exactly. And every single version that comes out, like, fuck, yeah, this is the shit.
I want to say Song of the Ancients is the only one that completely carries over with a new rendition into Automata. I mean, Kaine Salvation carries over, I believe. Or, no, actually, it's base Kaine that carries over. But Song of the Ancients gets its own version in Automata and carries over. But other than that, I think that's it. Because the song is just that good. And, of course, Devil and Popa.
When it comes to the soundtrack, there aren't any songs that wholesale carry over unless you're playing the game.
Right.
So, Kaine and Song of the Ancients Devila, but no lyrics, are the only ones that transfer over into Automata. But the remixes, though, I think the remixes that pop up are Grandma, Song of the Ancients, and Emil.
Yes.
Those are the ones that I think get remakes in Automata, which
Yes, that does sound accurate. Yeah.
not only that, what's always so interesting to me is the fact that Automata's music, even if it's not just straight up re-renditions of the same music, you can still hear that same DNA from Nier in Automata. I fucking love this music. All right. After you break out Grimoire Weiss has no idea who he is. He's just completely forgotten. Nier beat him up so badly that he can't remember shit. I'm not joking. We'll get there. So Grimoire Weiss is seen by Devil and Popola after Nier saves Yona from the Lost Shrine. And Popola's like, "Oh crap, you're Grimoire Weiss." And Devil then explains that Song of the Ancients is a song about two grimoire books that would split body from soul, with Grimoire Weiss being the good book and Grimoire Noir being the bad book, who would spread the black scrawl. And Weiss could be the person who could cure Yona if he gets the steel verses. This is all a lie. This is it's hilarious because when I was gathering this doc and I wrote it down and I went and revisited, everything she said is a lie. The two books, true, but there is no good book, there is no bad book. They lied to him to manipulate Nier into gathering the sealed verses. These fucking androids. So, from here, you go to the Aerie. But before that, Mugetsu, Song of the Ancients, the actual purpose of it, and what Devla tells you about it. How about that, huh?
I know you mentioned earlier that there's been some foreshadowing. I love all of the meaning. Like how we said, there's a meaning to everything
Mhm.
in these. I love all these. Even
So,
something as simple as a song
yeah,
in the game has a complete meaning behind it.
one of my favorite things about this is that when it comes to Song of the Ancients, apparently what was done with Song of the Ancients is that it was what the Hamlin organization put in Devil and Popola to continuously sing to remind themselves of their objective. So even though she's lying about certain things, like Weiss is going to cure Yona, no. If you gather the sealed verses, he can cure her. No. Grimoire Weiss is the good book. Noir is the bad book. No. Cures the
So,
Black Scroll. No.
nope.
So Devla and Popola specifically are singing this song to remind themselves of what Project Gestalt is for, and they rewrite it to lie to him. Incredible. So the other part of why this is a summary and a spoiler cast is because I also am going to discuss about how I played the game. So this is just going to be an elongated process of me telling you the quests in Automata. No, sorry. Oh, well, yes, actually, that too. The quests in Gestalt, Replicant, and Automata all almost overwhelmingly suck. So I'm going to read this because I need to really drill it in. There are one, two, three, four, five different quests that I did. One was the Gatekeeper's Errand, Lost Eggs, Old Fashioned Home Cooking, Boar Hunt, and Fragile Delivery. So, what's Gatekeeper Errand? Go deliver a message and then ask about weapons. Deliver the message, get paid. Lost Eggs. Find eggs that the chickens are hiding. Find it. Deliver the eggs, get paid. Old fashioned home cooking. Kill sheep, deliver their meat, get paid. Boar hunt, kill boar, get the ability to ride boars. Hey, look, a different quest. Good job. Fragile delivery. Take a package to the Aerie, you can't dodge roll, and you can't get hit, and you can't jump. Deliver it, get paid. These quests fucking suck, and this is only going to get worse. And I am going to make it a point to make it super boring when I talk about them to show you they suck. I'll try to speed through it at least. You get to the Aerie, and you meet the bitch queen herself, motherfucking Kaine. Mugetsu Kaine.
I'm not gonna lie, I think Kaine might be my favorite character in all of Drakengard and Nier. Laura Bailey can act, dude. That is one of my favorite things that's coming with this remaster is that I get to hear Laura Bailey curse up a storm again. She does not go as vulgar as she does in Nier. I love Kaine alone just for her vocabulary.
I can tell you right now that I would love it. I would love it if as soon as I boot up Near Replicant V1.2, Weiss, you dumbass. Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're gonna be sorry. Maybe I should rip out your pages one by one, or I should throw you in the goddamn furnace. How could someone with a big brain get hypnotized like a little bitch, huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord. Come give Weiss a big sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord. Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us.
Quote of the century for me.
I need this shit for my soul when I boot up V1.2. Or if not, I'm going to be just like the very most slight modicum of disappointed while I love the rest of it.
I just want them to release a CD of all of Kaine's vulgar lines. That's what I want. I would pay for that. Just a bunch of vulgar lines from Kaine.
If I could get that, I would love if the interstitials were Weiss just reprimanding her, just going, "Oh, you hussy. You couldn't dress up for the wedding with new lingerie, could you?"
That's a pretty good impression, not gonna lie.
You just have to take it slower with everything you say. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, he does sound like he's falling asleep while he's talking.
Pretty much. So, you are near, you head to the Aerie. The Aerie is this creepy floating town. It's not really floating, it's just that these houses are built along the walls, and when you get there, cold steel coffin plays. We'll get to. Cold steel coffin. How about that fucking song?
I love Cold Steel Coffin. That one, oh man. I mean, honestly, I love all of them, but I
Yes,
do remember Cold Steel Coffin being a really good standouter. Oh my goodness, I could go on for days about the soundtrack.
I know, and I really could too. But man, Cold Steel Coffin is one of those songs that just sounds so fucking horrifying.
Yeah, that one and the Wretched Automatons. Those two go super hard for me in terms of tone setters. Besides Snow and Summer,
Wretched Automata, Automata. Oh, sorry, Wretched Automata.
I think it's the
Wretched.
Wretched Automatons. I used to think it was Automatrons, but I think it's Automatons. The Wretched
Yes.
Automaton.
The thing is that since I call it Automata, and automaton feels like it fits better, I keep trying to swap my mind. So yeah, that's where my problem is.
And I would
But yeah,
even go as far as to say the a cappella version of the Wretched Automatons is one of my favorites in the whole franchise.
it's incredible. And Emmy Evans fucking kills it, and every other video game series should be embarrassed that they don't have an Emmy Evans to hold the entire soundtrack together. Back to the game. As near, you look around and you ask the head of the area, like, "Hey, you know what a sealed verse is?" And he's like, "I need you to get the hell out of here right now." And you're like, "Okay, all right, this town is horrified by people." On your way out, you see Kaine, and Kaine, if you need to see what she looks like, just look her up, all right? She's dressed skimpy as hell, and there's a reason, and it's a better reason than Quiet in Metal Gear Solid V. We'll get there. You fight Kaine. Kaine is cursing up a storm. It's hilarious because you have Weiss being absolutely appalled by her words, just like, "Oh God, what the hell is going on with her?" Now, you do all that, and while you're fighting, a gigantic shade pops up, and there's a reason why that is important. Now, you and Kaine fight this shade. Kaine is cursing up a storm because she has some fucking beef with this guy. After this, you fight, and Kaine's like, "Hey, thank you for helping me fight that thing. Get the hell out of here. I don't want you to be here anymore." I think she gets knocked out too, and Nier puts her in the bed, and that's when you leave. And that is the first instance that you hear Kaine's theme, which, the funny thing is that Emmy Evans, whenever she sings the Kaine theme, she does the most amount of emotion that she can into it because she considers it her thank you song to the fans. After you encounter that shade and you have a fight, you go back to the village, and Popola hears about the shade that you fought. She tells you, hey, you know what? You should probably go over to the Two Brothers weapon refinery. They can go ahead and get your weapon stronger. So you go over there, and it's just the idea for you to be able to upgrade your weapons, which sadly becomes a super important part later on in the game. Infuriating. Now, this is the point where I did another quest called Herbal Remedies. Popola needs that herb. Deliver it. Get paid. That's it. We get into another short story, The Demonic Mountain. This short story is for the two brothers that you are about to meet. Now, the problem is that with this story is that it doesn't really add much more. So I feel like I'm just going to read into it. Two brothers, Jacob and Gideon. Jacob being the older one, Gideon being the younger one. They have an abusive mother who is completely unattended for them. Now, they imply that she goes into this abandoned factory from the olden days, and you are provided with the fact that she's definitely having sex in there, but they leave it vague enough where it feels like either she is actually prostituting herself to be able to pay for some of the stuff that her family needs, or that she's actually just probably fucking these guys because she wants to. Because she is very unattendant, Jacob is basically providing for Gideon more than she is. Not only does Jacob actually provide the most for his younger brother, the worst part is that his younger brother Gideon is still more connected to his mom more than anything else. But this is starting to take a toll with Jacob because eventually what ends up happening is that he starts trying to provide so much to gain his younger brother's love, but it's just not working. He even talks about how he loves his brother so much that he would cut off his limbs and cook them to provide food. And he even starts considering paralyzing his younger brother to make sure that he would stay safe. So he's willing to actually go in and screw up his spine so he wouldn't be able to be in danger anymore, just so he could keep an eye on him. This is all going on. The last final thoughts are going on through Jacob's head when we finally cut back into the game where we know none of this. So, short story, all of that, back into the gameplay. You meet the two brothers. They need supplies inside the military base that is nearby, the abandoned factory, and apparently their mom has been in there for an entire week. So, I also wrote a note here. Mugetsu, do you think that that military base, that factory that they have, do you think there's any chance that that's the original factory that opens up in Automata?
I thought about that, and while there's no confirmation of it, I want to give Yoko Taro the credit and assume that's it. I'm gonna assume he had that in mind.
Okay, because I have that feeling when 2B is talking to her pod. I just remember them saying, "Oh, this used to build machines in the old world." And I wouldn't be shocked if that military base, that factory did the same thing. So we're just going to assume it is because we want to give him more credit than he probably. No, that's the thing.
Yeah,
We're just
because
going to
I'm
give him
not
credit.
I'm not entirely sure if there were millions of factories like that or anything. I don't think the game explicitly said so, so I'm just gonna give him the benefit and just say that's the one.
I'm willing to give it as well because there's something that involves Emil later on that specifically places him in a certain location between both games. So
Right.
I'm willing to give him credit for that. Now, you go into the military base, you fight a whole bunch of these robots, you get to the bottom. Once again, gameplay highly unremarkable. You do get into a boss fight though, and it's funny because this is just one of the call outs or jokes that Yoko Taro puts into the game to remind you of other games. The boss is pretty much a copy and paste of one of these Zelda bosses where you throw bombs into their mouth and they blow up and it hurts them and you just keep doing it. So they have a moment where Weiss goes, "Huh, the mouse, such an obvious weak point." And it's one of those things where this game is charming enough that if it were any other time, like you'd roll your eyes.
Right.
Like if this was a Mario and Princess Beach line, you would just be like, But because Weiss is such a likable character, you just go, you know what? Yeah, fine. We'll let you. You beat the boss and you find the mom dead along with a lover. And you see that they have a whole bunch of food with them. So the implication is that the mom stole the food for her kids and then tried to run away with a lover into the base. And they got killed by the boss that you just fought. Heartwarming. From there, you beat the boss, you see the mom, you get out, and you go back to the two brothers. The younger brother asks you, "Hey, what happened to my mom?" And you have a chance to either lie to him or tell him, "Oh, she's in heaven now." We'll get to. I doubt it, but any chance you remember what you chose?
I don't. No, I don't remember.
No, don't worry. That was 2 years ago. I barely remember what we were talking about an hour ago. I specifically chose. Oh yeah, your mom's in heaven. Um, I basically did that because I wanted to let the older brother know, hey, yeah, I know what happened, but I'm going to try and put it lightly for him. Once you do that, the younger brother, no matter what you choose, he runs out of the room, and the older brother looks at him and goes, "Look, I knew what my mom was doing. I knew she ran. I just wanted to be sure that she was dead." Yeah, so along with the short story, it sounds like he might be even a little glad that she's dead. After this, I did another quest. It's called Book Smarts. This is the slightly above okay one, but they still suck. You go back to the library, and there's an NPC that is asking you to organize books. The main reason that I'm okay with this one is that the dialogue between Nier and Weiss is so entertaining. Nier takes the job to try to organize the books in the library, and Nier's like, "Hey, so you're magic, right? Can you just, teleport these books into where they belong?" And Weiss is just like, "How dare you? I am an all-powerful book. My name brings nations to their knees, and you're asking me to just put down books?" And then Nier just dryly replies, "I'm not asking for much." Like, it's his line delivery is the only reason why I'm okay with this quest. So after that, we move on. Yona is only getting worse from the Black Scrawl, and Popola says, "Hey, there's a fish in Seafront that if you get, you can probably be able to heal her up a little bit." Which is funny when you think about how Popola and Devla were like, "Hey, go kill shades and go prostitute yourself for this medicine that will end a little bit of her suffering, or you can go fish." And they, for some reason, thought, "Hey, you know what? Killing these shades instead of the fish to get medicine money. You know what? Fine. I never said these games were perfect." Yeah, you go over to Seafront. Once again, the game doesn't really tell you anything about how Nier has reservations about going. I don't know if that's a localization thing because, once again, we are playing Nier Gestalt, not Nier Replicant, but I doubt it's there in either version. You go to Seafront. Did you actually land a fish when you did this? Once again, 2 years. I understand if you don't remember.
I don't think I did land a fish.
Okay, then you got the same scene that I did. So if you fail to land a fish after 3 or 4 times, the game cuts to black and it says 2 days later, and Nier's like, "Ah, I finally caught a fish. It took me 2 whole
Yeah, that did
days."
happen to me. Yeah, I remember. Because I busted a gut laughing at that for sure.
Oh my god, it's hilarious. So that ends up happening. It's funny because one of the trophies is to be able to catch every fish at least once. So what ends up happening is that the controls that they explain to you are not correctly done, which is weird because most of the game seems like it's translated perfectly. So this is the one glaring omission where I'm like, you were specifically telling people to move the joystick in the opposite direction of what you're supposed to be doing. And it wasn't until I was trying to get the trophies that they were like, "No, no, no, you have to follow the directions." Like, how was this not fixed? Like, even a small patch could probably go in and edit the text. But no, apparently, even in the game that I played just at the beginning of this year, still has the wrong text. What ends up happening is that after you catch your fish, you leave, and there is an old lady that stops you who, she's a mean old battle axe, that one. Now, why did I say that? Because that is a specific quote that you hear from a whole bunch of NPCs whenever you're walking around in the game. There's people like, Lighthouse Lady, she's a mean old battle axe, that one. And I kind of hope they keep it in Replicant V 1.2. At least, one of the characters can say it. I just don't need it repeated as much. The old lady tells you, hey, I need you to get my mail. The postman, he's an asshole. He's not delivering my mail. Go complain. And both Nier and Weiss are just like, man, we don't really want to do this. But then she's so mean to you that you're just like, you know what? Okay, fine. You know what? Just so you can back off, I'll do it. So they do that, and you get the quest Postman's Request. Now, the Postman's Request is the only side quest that I say is good and worth doing. There are almost 70 to 75 side quests in this game, and there's only one I could say is worth doing. But then again, it's a multi part one. But I still am offended by the fact that it's one.
Just one.
The postman basically can't stand the lighthouse keeper. And what ends up happening is that the postman keeps sending her the love letters that she keeps getting, but he's just so tired of delivering them because she's getting consistent amounts of love letters. And what ends up happening is that you can read them before you hand them off to her. And the lover's just like, oh, all of this is going on. This is my life that's going on. And I love you, but I can't come back yet. Just keep waiting for me. And you deliver the letter, and she's like, oh, thank you. She's pissed at you, but then when she starts reading the letter, she softens up. So you deliver the letter, get paid. Now, the other shitty quests. Quest, shopping list. Go buy stuff, deliver it, get paid. Quest, a return to shopkeeping. Same. The tavern keeper's grandmother. Find ingredients, deliver it, then deliver the drink to the grandmother who eats too much and can't walk, and the drink helps with digestion. Get paid. Quest, a dog stray. Another solid one, actually. An old man asks you to find his dog. You find the dog dead with medicine in his mouth. You deliver the medicine to a guy that is in the same spot as the old man. He tells you that the old man died because he didn't have the medicine, and apparently his dog was smart enough to go get him the medicine, but the dog died in the process. Thank you, Yoko.
Thank you.
Thank you. That wasn't sad enough. This game isn't sad enough, but apparently you need to give us an old man that is dying without his medicine and a dog smart enough to want his human to live that he tries to go back and get the medicine and dies in the process. Thank you, Yoko. That one, it feels like such a small story, but I don't ever think it's too good enough to do it. Quest, a signature dish, get ingredients, deliver it, get paid. Now this one though, actually, you know what? I lied. This is another good one. Did you ever do the Ballad of the Twins?
Is that the one where you get them drunk?
This ain't no David Dobrik shit, but they wanted to get drunk. Okay, now,
Yeah, I don't think I did that one.
oh, okay. So, man, so Quest, the Ballad of the Twins. Get Popola drunk enough to sing another Song of the Ancients remix with Devila. Get paid in fire. That's exactly what I wrote. That's the notes.
You don't mean fire as in flames. You mean like they killed the track.
They fucking kill the track. They
Okay,
kill it.
then I'm gonna have to go look that up. I don't know if I want to wait until Friday to hear that. I'm gonna have to look that up.
The remix of Song of the Ancients that they do is basically a lounge remix of it, of their two lyrics
Ooh, don't
singing.
tell me. Don't tell
Oh
me.
man, like it's so laid back. You got the piano keys just clicking away, and you got the two of them just singing over it. And I remember finishing this quest, and I just sat there again, just waiting. I'm like, I know that as soon as I leave this room, it's never going to play again in the game. And I just sat there. I was like, fuck yeah. I left the TV on, I left the room, I'd come back and it'd still be playing. I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
it'll
this is
it'll
that
loop
shit.
continuously until you leave.
Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna make sure that I leave my PS4 sitting there, and I will just save an hour-long clip, and I will put that on loop on my computer and listen to that during the day. Then I'm gonna
Oh,
do that. I'm gonna use that 1 hour capture thing. I'm gonna do that.
dude, the Ballad of the Twins is probably the only other quest that's worth it because them singing that shit, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I needed this. Fuck yeah.
Hi, hello, it me. This is going on a lot longer than I expected. This is an audio pickup just to help bridge between this episode and the next one. I was thinking it was going to be just a straight shot for a recording, but I wrote a lot. And there's a lot to break down through this game. So, this is going to be an abrupt ending, but there is probably either 2 or 3 more coming down the line. So, excuse the abrupt ending, but then again, it's not like I ever knew how to end things anyways. So, the next one drops probably on the actual day that the game releases, or maybe the third one does too. I don't know. I still haven't planned it out yet. So, yeah.